Looks like some sort of subspatial interference.
So, are we gonna fight?
Hell yeah, we are.
I met a girl in the world. Jerry was her name, and I fell in love. Safety norms, and I was tired from the ride. The saving grace.
Secrets must remain hidden. You have a chance to avenge the betrayed.
You wanna live or you wanna fly, and take your toll on the line.
So, what are you waiting for?
Going through the motions means you've got nowhere to go. Stands upon the grave of all the shackles in your past. Loving, fighting, screaming, crying, live like it.
This story is far from over.
Hey there, sister, oh, you gotta rock and roll. Hey there, sister, oh, you gotta lose control. We're gonna see, nigga, who you're meant to be. Oh, 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 oh. Hey there, sister, oh, you gotta rock and roll. Hey there, sister, oh, you gotta lose control. We're gonna see, nigga, who you're meant to be.
И всем добро пожаловать!
Hi everyone. Hi to TBD. Welcome to TBD Pro Art, an online meetup for artists, art leads, all right, and producers and everyone who is into art. I'm sure there are millions of them, and there are lots of them in the chat. We have a Twitch, VK, Contact and the Telegram line broadcasts. They will pick up a lot of questions. My name is Simon Okorokov. I'm the host of the DTF broadcast, and with me is Anton Lukov, the creative director of Big Games. So let's shake hands. Hi. So I wanted to present our partners and then ask you what's going to happen today. So first of all, here are our partners. This is DTF. That's all an excellent website and the go-to website. And you have the My Games blog. Then Scream School is the only person-to-person school in Russia where you can get the game development degree, including a European degree. They open doors to the global gaming industry, provide up-to-date knowledge and the tools to improve, to implement any new ideas through games and digital products. And also Oclick, that's a brand that produces computer accessories. And so we'll have a quiz, a contest today for you where you can win a keyboard, a mouse, and some other accessories. So there'll be some prizes, so stay tuned until the very end. I'd just like to remind you, what is TBD Pro? That's a series of online events, and some of them are a hybrid, where My Games and its partner studios share their experience. So if you are into gaming, that's a must-watch. So what are we going to have today? Walk us through the agenda. Today, we focus on pipelines. Pipelines is a production chain in game development. My Games features 14 companies, and each of them have their own pipeline. And today, we'll share the stories of those pipelines. First of all, Vadim Udeltsov, a 3D artist from Big Games, will give you an overview of the step-by-step process of pipelines for 2D and 3D arts in Storrington Hall, then we'll have Igor Arkhipov, an art director and IT territory, who will share with us the insights of putting together 2D projects, and they've been really successful. So we'll look at how they assembled the 2D graphics. And then, together with Olga Damina, we will talk about putting together a portfolio for freshmen, for artists. We'll talk about some case studies, some success stories, and we'll share our perspective, who we pick and who we discard, and what you need to do to change your portfolio to become one of the best. And then we'll have Marlon Nunes, art director at Art Heroes, our foreign guest, who will talk about a very challenging process of designing 3D digital twins, digital humans, to open our eyes to the future of gaming. So what Marlon is doing is so labor-intensive, so challenging, that it's not part of the mainstream pipelines, but that's going to be the mainstream trend in the future. So he's into movies right now, from what I know. Yes, movies, cinematics, and ads, but we'll go back to it later on. Julia Serret, an art director from the Bridge Studios, will talk about the pipelines of 3D characters for a PvP game that will soon be announced. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of insights that you can pick up. Well, that's it, I guess. And you'll now talk about the prizes and we'll move on. Sure, that's what I waited for. Let's go back to our prize list. Click, our partner, will have a quiz for 5 sets of these accessories, a headset, a keyboard, and a mouse. So we have 5 sets. 3 sets will be drawn during the quiz. At the end of the broadcast, we'll have a quiz, and you'll have to reply to some questions, and you can actually pick up the answers during the presentations. You have to listen to the presentations very carefully because it's very useful, and you can also find the right answer to the quiz you'll see later. And 2 sets will be up for grabs to those who will come up with the most exciting questions. Well, Anton, you pick the best questions. You know which questions are interesting. You know which questions will be the most interesting. So you have 2 people who will grab those sets for the most interesting questions. So just want to urge you to put as many questions as possible. That's it for the prizes. Who'll be the first speaker for today? And what I forgot is that you can put your questions in the chat. YouTube, Twitch have contacted you on the website. And you also need to go to the Telegram chat, because we won't be able to answer all of the questions, but that's where the speakers will be. You can scan the QR code right now. I'm sure you have a camera on your smartphone, and join this Telegram chat. It's a great one, you know. It's the go-to page. What's next? So we'll have Vadim Udartsov, who is a 3D artist at Bit Games. He'll talk about Storrington Hall, a very popular mobile game. We'll talk about its pipeline. It's a hybrid one. It consists of a 2D part, 3D part. So we'll look at how they marriage them Yes. And he's going to be live. Yes. Vadim is here in the studio with us. Hi, Vadim. Hi, Simon. Hi, Anton.
Hi everyone, my name is Vadim. So I am the 3D artist in Beat Game Studio. I'll tell you about the pipeline of Match 3 game, Storrington Hall. Let me tell you a bit about myself. Who am I actually? Speaking about my job, I've been in this industry for 7 years. I'm the artist and I'm doing the rigging. I was a level designer, a 3D artist, and I'm doing the exports and adjusting the prefabs in Unity. Now let's take a look at a small teaser rollout about our Storrington Hall game. Turn it on, please.
Такая вот красивенькая игрушка.
Yeah, that was it. Very nice game. So let's speak about some specifics about the game itself. Storrington Hall is a match 3 classical game, but the main detail is the plot, which is quite simple, but it's very spectacular with the heroes, with the characters, and the plot itself is about the heroes, the Greens, inherit a mansion. But to their pity, they find out that the mansion is ramshackle and they have to restore it, renovate it. And during the process of renovation, it turns out that it's not only they who live in the mansion, but there are other characters and different intrigues come into the scene. And we call it actually the setting of sofas with intrigues. Our pipeline starts with a scenario. Initially, the scriptwriter creates a draft, forms some ideas, thoughts, and tries to put them down, to fix them down in these pieces of paper. There we describe some concept things in thesis. After everything is ready and the ideas are finalized, the scriptwriter puts them into a story, as if it's a novel. Actually, the game consists of several chapters. There are a lot of them. And we can go through the chapters as if it is a real novel written by a writer, a real writer. And as soon as everything is put down, we are dividing the story into quests, different chapters, and the cutscenes. As soon as the list of dialogues and characters and the cutscenes is formed, it looks like this, approximately. Yeah. It all is put into the table. The table forms different tasks for many artists. As soon as it is filled out, all the artists gather together for the first reading. It creates the task for concept artists, animators, UI artists, visual effects artists, and translators as well. In this process, we found out what kind of characters are needed, what kind of objects are needed. As soon as it is defined and the tasks are distributed, the most important process starts. We called it a shuttle production or shuttle pipeline. Most often, the visual part defines the plot itself. The scriptwriter takes a look at the locations that were ready before, because it turns out that the objects that were used earlier, you should keep them in mind all the time. And as soon as the scheme of the locations is looked through, then the scriptwriter starts thinking about concepts of locations and adds up to the list of objects. After that, the scriptwriter tweaks somehow the plot. In parallel, as soon as everything is discovered, everything is known, then the cutscenes are created. But in parallel, the plot objects are being drawn. These are two parallel processes, actually. As soon as the plot objects are drawn, they go into the cutscene so that the cutscene artist could navigate there. As soon as the draft is ready, then it's sent to review, because review is the most important thing. As soon as it's done, the first draft review is done, all the objects are finalized. After that, they're reviewed as well. Only after that, they go into cutscenes where the finalization happens, and visual effects are imposed on them, put on. So the new chapter is ready. So you see that one asset is handed over and back, forth and back, that's why we called it a shuttle production, or like a potato throwing at each other, this is the effect. So the main visual part of the game, let's speak about it. Since the game is built in the Regency epoch, it's very important, or it can be called English Empire epoch, The location itself looks like a mansion. It's in 2D graphics, isometric projection. It's our full picture of the world. This is how it looks like. So how is it created? There are several stages or steps. The first is the searching for references, then the concept, modeling, rendering, post-processing, and exporting to Unity. So we have this process shifting everything from 2D into 3D. So let's speak about each step. First stage is searching for references. As soon as we know that this story takes place in some definite epoch. So it means that we should be authentic. And there is actually strict supervision over that. So you can take a look how the artists are looking for references, how they pay attention to even the slightest details. You can take a look at the design of the interiors. You can take a look at the furniture and how the artist puts all that from references into locations in the game. These are more examples of references. Interior design, the furniture, how many details are there, There are so many columns and these high ceiling statues. Yeah, it catches the eye, As soon as the main references are found, the next stage is the concept stage. The scenario is written and we know what kind of object is needed for the new location. So the artist starts looking for new shapes, new colors at this stage. So here you can see that artist is trying to depict some kind of a garden with specific objects. So let's see. Let's look at the example of this fountain, water fountain. As soon as the concept is approved, then it goes to 3D model artist. We know that the location is used in the isometric view, and it is just rendering. Here, we're not so focused on the model, that it should be optimized somehow. So we don't pay attention to these details. What most important is that it was pleasant to the eye. There we need some specific surfaces for it to look nice. As soon as it is done, we start rendering it. Here we should understand that there is some specific pipeline of development. All the models are rendered under the special lighting, and we're using Maya and Maya plus Arnold. For different buildings, we use the gray color to highlight it, also from Arnold. And we render it in two sources of light, looking in different directions. And as soon as we render it, we add different masks so that it was convenient for the artist to apply different colors on the object. And speaking about materials, we don't always use only gray color. There are some exclusions. Take a look at this chair. We can see that at the render, there are some specific colors are used. to shape the texture of the material. For example, the legs are made in wooden quality and there are some metallic details. And to facilitate the post processing, the artist uses some specific texture on it. As soon as it is rendered, it is handed over to the artist, where he does the post processing. Everything is done in the Photoshop. Take a look at this slide. Here, you might ask a question like, well, why grass is not model, you know? It's easier for the artist to draw the grass, actually. Everything is done in Photoshop, and some needed elements are being added there, and everything is optimized. After the post-processing, it is handed over to the technical artist. He works on it in Unity. In tech art, the objects are divided into two parts. It's ground objects and billboard objects. I'll explain to you later what it means. With the help of the script, the picture is transformed into specific prefab. You can take a look how it happens. What are the ground objects? So these are the objects that are positioned on the surface, on the plane surface, and the character is moving on them. Character is on top of them all the time. We're speaking about carpets here, about grass, about land. You can see character standing on the carpet. So next object is billboard. Billboard is always looking at the camera, you know, and it's always on top of like ground. Character may be walking behind it or in front of it. It looks as if it is 3D actually, although it's 2D, of course. It's used in many projects actually. As soon as the objects are defined, the technical artist fills out the first location. Since we know that when the new room is discovered, it is littered, you know. That's why initially we make it a little bit ramshackle and broken. After that, we add some necessary objects to the room. This is how it looks like at the first sight, and this is one of the options of filling it out and filling it in with the objects. Technical artists like arches that. There is this strict concept of that, how it should be done. So how is the room being furnished? So there are some active objects and static objects. Static objects are all the objects not changing with time and over time. Since character can furnish the room in any possible way, each object has its own state and it can change over the game. So active objects have different modifiers to change their state. For example, again, a chair. So we have a game object. It's empty. And we actually use this decor placeholder. So here we see all the visual information about different states of the object. For example, you can see that chair has 3 states, and the player can select any of it. Technical artist does this, actually possible, makes it possible. As soon as the static objects are defined, everything is added up in visual effects, sound effects. It looks like this. For a player, he can select any chair he likes and put it in his location. In Unity, the components look like this. Each object has its own animation, animation for location, animation of appearance on the location, and visual special effects. So we're done with the production of location, and we start working on most of the key moments. Creation of characters. All the characters are made in 3D. They're main heroes of our story. The process is divided into several stages. The idea, the ideation, writing down the characteristics of this character and hero: modeling, texturing, rigging, animation, and experts into the game. You can see one of the characters on the slide. Let's start with the concepts and references. The very first key idea is that we write down all the details of the character, his behavioral traits, what kind of animation he's going to have. For example, this David is a military man. He should be a cool man, a brave man. He should have stamina. Yeah, we had the full description of this hero. And as soon as the description is ready, the concept artist creates some necessary references. They should find the character, they should feel him. So here you can take a look at the references that we use to create this character. And you can see what kind of elements we've taken. So you can feel the character, you can see the outer appearance, you can take a look at the hairdo. So as soon as the reference is found, then we are creating the concept. So here is a 2D image. The concept artist creates depicts our character. Here we have a T posture. There are different stands specific for this character. And the main interesting feature here is that we see the height of the person versus other characters. As soon as it is done, then it's handed over to 3D modeling. It's done in Maya as well. And here the main thing is that we should feel the core of the character. Actually, I am the adherer of modeling from this cube. What's interesting is that our character should deform very well. He should be looking like flexible and visually nice, because he takes part in dialogues in our game. And the player sees this character very up close. So we are making this mesh very dense on the face. So here you can see that the face has a lot this thick mesh, and it's rarefied on the dress. Because the eyes are moving, the eyebrows are moving, mouth is moving, of course, and the hands should be very smooth and flexible. As soon as the main draft of the model is ready, it is divided into several segments. Since we have the possibility of customizing the character, it means that you can dress up in any dress you like. So here is Jane, for example. Here we have body separately, hair, and a dress. So in the game process, you can customize your character and select a dress you like, just like other characters. For example, James, he's a main character, is also divided into these parts because he has this fancy dress as well. As soon as the model is ready, and we went through 1,000 of reviews. So this stage is texturing. It's done with the help of Photoshop. All the details are depicted on a texture, and we're using only color. One texture, and we're filling it out with color. I'm dividing the model into segments. You can color like teeth, eye sockets. So it is how it is texturized. 2048 and 2048 resolution. As soon as the model is texturized, well, in parallel, actually, there is a process of rigging. And the key specifics is the face animation and dresses animation, apparel animation. We should make it looking realistic and stylistically correct. For example, on the face of this character, there are about 15 bones.
Также мы используем контроллер на пальцах и
We also have some control on fingers,
манипуляции создаем
and with the help of some manipulations, we are creating this type of rigging.
такие косточки, как вот object.
We have
Мы сможем
this type of
поставить любому
bones actually as called object, and we can
какие могут эмоции
put into their hands any objects, and you can see how many emotions they can have on their faces.
разобраться в моих
Sometimes it might be hard to make something out in my riggings or animations.
намного выгоднее, нежели чем blend shape.
It's easier compared to blend
Не только
shapes, actually.
персонажи и органические объекты обладают системами
Not only characters and objects have some systems for animation, there are some equipment as well, or this chariot, for example. I made it drift once even.
предметы, с которыми взаимодействует персонаж, могут поддаваться
So all the objects the character interacts with might be animated as well.
такой вот момент интересный. После того, как моделька готова к анимации,
As soon as the model is ready for animation,
магический процесс лично
there is a magical process happening, well, especially for me.
моделька оживает. То есть не
The
просто
model
какая-то
comes
статика,
alive. It's not just standing in one posture, you know, it starts moving,
тут наш аниматор
and our animator
двигаться через
helps
слезы
to achieve that.
и жесткие ТЗ. Например, видно, как Джейн, кстати, вот переодевается в разные
So you can see how Jane is changing her dresses,
мистер Шлакер ворует.
and our Mr.
Примерно так выглядит.
Here is another character is trying to steal some jam.
Это ключи.
Next is a graph editor.
И, наверное, вот так вот
These are the keys, controllers,
парик и плачет.
and probably this is how he looks at my rigging and sometimes cries.
Персонажа, то есть мы можем нашим ригом
Yeah, speaking about the emotions, we can
моделька прошла анимации,
have different emotions on our characters.
экспорта модельки.
As soon as animation is done, the export into the game starts. Let me remind you that the model is divided into several segments.
Модельки в Unity.
So this is the bit of the model in Unity. On top, you can see the prefabs with animation, and there is a separate body, hair, and head. Materials and textures also exported separately. Let me remind you that we are not using any other sources
Без источников освещения.
of sources of light. We are using the unlit objects. As soon as all the characters are exported, we start the process of cutscenes creation. We start telling our story to their players. We have our personal editors. Our programmers developed it, actually. It's a cutscene manager. What can they do? Actually, it's a little bit different timeline with the help of which we can add any type of animation, any type of character, set him some specific path, select animation for his object, select customization for the character, and everything can be done visually and it can be visible on the scene. Here is the definition of their paths. You can see from point A to point B. As soon as the cutscene is created, it looks like this. It's a cutscene without any dialogues. Here is our David on a horse, and Jane is following on her feet. So here is it's one of the final stages of telling the story to our players. The next is the gameplay. Match 3. Match 3 is the main gameplay of this game, so we have strict timelines, including the visual ones and stylistic ones. So first of all, we start with game design and being inspired by different mechanics. After that, we start working on the concept. Next one is rendering into 2D, exporting into the engine, animation, and testing. Game designer studies existing mechanics and actually studies and tries to understand what can be introduced into our game, because we have some stylistic stylistic limitations, because our game is in the epoch of Regency. So we need to bring these mechanics into our reality, but not too much at the same time. As soon as we have found some specific mechanics, they're formed, then we are looking for some shapes. For example, here you can see that the artist is looking for the sketches that can imitate the mechanics of keys and pendants. So the final result is being drawn and exported into the engine. Here are the examples of the obstacles, sketches, boxes. This is how it looks like in Unity. Pictures are exported by means of just copying and pasting, kind of. Then we are adjusting the mask, adding animation, visual effects animation. It looks like this in Unity. As soon as everything is exported, we have our own tool of developing the level of match 3. It looks like this. So game designer puts all the details as he likes, as he planned. You can pick any detail. Everything is customized here. Like thousands of levels are created with the help of this editor. As soon as the level is ready, it looks like this. Visual effects are rendered here. And that's it. The main interesting thing is that we have our own farm. For testing, you can actually take a photo of this QR code and go into that farm. Our technical director created that. And in this article, he described how it all happens. Next slide is about creating different features of the game. That's it. Thank you very much. Questions? There are a lot of questions. Yeah, from the chat. Anton, please. Yeah, we have some HR-related questions. I guess we'll try to answer them later in HR Talks part. And they'll be given some examples, actually, you're curious about. Let me ask some most important ones, I guess. Can I be the first one? Why speaker is without a beard? It would fit him nicely. Yeah, I decided to shave it off because my mother asked me to. I'll ask the next one a little bit later. Also important one, just like this one. How do you implement the animation of characters? Is it 3D modeling in Unity or rendered sprites? It's 3D model, fully 3D model. It's not sprite thing, polygonal model. And all the animations are made in Maya. What's the poly count? 12 or 13,000 of triangles. But the main part is happening on the face. On the face, it's about 3,000, and on the rest of the body, it's less. Yeah, the main focus is on the body, and in general, it's about 12, 13,000 triangles. And it is much less for the object in the hand of the character. And what's the maximum, actually, poly count for the scene? It's about 70,000. In cutscenes, we have about 7 characters. It was max. And there was about, 100,000. And nothing was lagging, actually. It was good. One more technical question. What about the textures? They have resolution of 2K, and Unity, they're being shrinked. Yes, there are some different types of compression for mobile devices. For example, for Android, there is its own compression for Android, its own compression, and the other ones as well. All systems have their own compression features. It is all divided and done in the gaming engine. One guy with his user game nick asked 7 questions. Is it hard to balance between drawing and drafting what you like and what you have to? Well, I don't actually do that. I don't do the drawing
Вопрос такой,
myself.
что здесь уже дело какого-то принципа, может быть. То есть ты можешь порисовать спокойно у
I
себя
guess it's a
дома,
principle matter because you can draw whatever you want at home, yeah, and you should do whatever you're asked to do it at the project.
Сколько человек участвует в этом, в пайплайне вообще?
So how many people are taking part in this pipeline?
И артистов около 25.
There are lots of them, about 25 artists.
Вот. У нас получается несколько, конкретно из моделеров всего 2 основных. Есть также помощники моделеры.
There are 2
Тоже много, но основной костяк там
modelers,
20-25.
2 assistants, but the main core team is 20-25 people, and we have outsourced team as well. Outsource is used to create 2D assets
В рамках нашей студии не все получается сделать вовремя срок, поэтому что сроки у нас
because sometimes we don't manage to hit the timelines, you know. So match 3, do you use 3D models or sprites? We use sprites, 2D images. Initially, the first drafts were used for some specific reference to create some volume, but eventually that was reworked into pipeline of 2D development. What are the timelines for each type of the asset from start until the end finalized version? Well, everything is quite individual. For example, the character of Dominica, the development of such character takes about 1 month. There are some moments when the character doesn't turn out well and it goes back like to the very initial stages. Well, in general, a concept takes 1 week, modeling 1 week, and inserting it to the cutscene as well takes about 1 week or 1 week and a half. Let me ask one naive question. Why do the objects are modeled in 3D if eventually they are in 2D? Well, it's done for optimization of production in order to facilitate and speed it up. Yeah, it turns out to be easier, faster, because the artist doesn't have to look for this isometric view, and it has a shape, and he doesn't need to think about how it's going to be shown on in the game. There was examples with some branches and grasses, and it is done manually. Plus the light is ready, yes. So the light doesn't differ from object to object. Yeah, we don't have this shading, we don't have one location looks like one coherent place. In which projects else do you work? Photoshop, Maya, Unity, and some of us are working in Blender. But I don't like it very much, actually. I like Maya better.
Понятно. Ну, наверное, надо еще вопросик задать, и все остальные, я думаю...
One more final question, I guess, and the rest can be asked in the chat and Telegram.
Потому, да. Есть какой-нибудь еще интересный прям вопрос?
What would it be? What will happen if in production of a chapter there is a mistake or you would like to change something in it? Yeah, of course, there are such cases, and everything starts from the very beginning. Everything is changed. There were some points, some moments when the character was in the cutscene and he doesn't look nice or she doesn't look nice. Then this character goes to the very beginning, and it happens with a new character actually, but I'm not going to disclose that. Everything should look like everything should be ideal to the T. Yeah, sometimes we'll have to overwork in order to achieve the best result possible. Thank you, Vadim. Thank you very much. Let me remind you. So please go into Telegram chat, and there you'll be able to ask questions and maybe to get some answers. Probably the QR code will be also displayed there. So you can go to Telegram and tune to our broadcast. Anton, can you tell me what was I supposed to understand for myself? Because I understood a lot. Well, Vadim was telling us a lot and so fast, and it seems to be the tip of the iceberg because the pipeline itself is so complicated. What I would like to focus on is that about the challenges for the ordinary artists. The challenge is that it's not about the changes and tweaking, and the most important thing is that we should be authentic and we should be historically precise and correct. Actually, it complicates the work with references. And the process of the production is being dragged, actually, yeah. But actually, in the end, we have a great result of our work. And the native speakers, the Englishmen, Americans, and their culture is built on that. They're actually very, they are actually very, how to say, they treat it very seriously. Yeah, and we have to work with them, yeah? We have to be very authentic. I wanted to ask whether you have some kind of a historian in your team. Yes, we have the native speakers and people who were born. They, of course, we're working remotely, but actually we're showing the jokes, we're checking whether the native speakers understand the jokes, because the project is devoted to, is focused on the Western audience. We're also testing some reference to some jokes. Yeah, this is what we are checking. And who is the meme expert? Yeah, we have a meme expert. That's good. So I think that we might, we should ask the next speaker to join us. Igor Arkhipov. He works in IT territory studio. Igor.
Oh, well, I hope you can see us and hear us. Yes, hi, Simon and Anton. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to see such a big audience. Now, as an aside, Anton talked about the success of the project. I believe that success boils down to the novelty of the genre. So you have several genres coming together and lots of relevant humor picked up from TikTok for social media. It's relatable to the younger generation and to older audiences, both in Europe and in the US. So my name is Igor Arkhipov. I work at Rush Royale. I worked at Allod's. I was an artist there. I also worked on a previous project. And right now, I'm with Rush Royale. It's a PvP game, PvE game. You have both defense and merge, two genres, and a lot of random. And the usual PvP session is the showdown between two players. Each of them have their own field. and there are several characters, and around that battlefield there are enemies, and they have to withstand them. We don't see your presentation. Are you supposed to put up your slides? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Зато видим
коллекцию
классную геймпадов вот в чате.
Well, we can see a collection of gamepads, and some of the people say in the chat have counted the number of gamepads you have on your windowsill. Can you see the slides right now? Yes, great. Well, thank you for pointing that out. And you need to switch to the right mode. Well, you will just focus everyone's attention on this presentation. Yes, we have these fields, and there are some enemies which crawl around. So it's both PvP and co-op. The project was a remote one. That was when the COVID-19 broke out. And initially we put together the team in a remote way. And for us, we put it together in a record time, 6 months. And that was a strong motivation to draw up a lot of documentation. It's really difficult to get along with a person who is who operates abroad. That's why we had to write a lot of documents and share them with those who worked with us remotely. Our focus is on the focus on the presentation is on budding teams. So it's mainly for novices who are just coming up with their own pipelines, who are putting together the first ADDs, and I will share my experience. So why 2D? First, because of the tight deadlines. We looked at the production time and in the previous projects, and we realized that given such tight deadlines, it would be simpler and faster to do a 2D project. So all the pipelines are 2D. There are some restrictions as well. So my slides will feature some parts about the documents, part about the team. We haven't expected such an increase in the art team. It grew fourfold in those 6 months, and that had an impact on the pipeline. And at the end, I will share one of the pipelines and how we did some illustrations for the banner. Now, the first rule for any artist that joins our team, they have to read the ADD, the art design document. It applies to anyone from novice, from junior artist to the art lead. There are no rules about ADD. Each art director has its own fixations, and my ADD brings together my experience in the gaming industry. First thing is the glossary. Again, that's for less experienced developers. You have some terminology that artists use, game designers use, so that we are on the same page. And game designers sometimes read ADD so that they can speak the same language with artists, or at least some bits of the ADD. And now, then we move to an introduction. It outlines the genre, any competitors. Next, you have stylistic specific features. So it's like some idiosyncrasies that depends on your art director. I like to take shapes, and if you add character to the shape, then it's going to look really cool. And there are a lot of bullet points, the stylistic idiosyncrasies. I don't want to go deeper into it. Now, goals and objectives. So we define our target audience. We take this info from the pitch. We need to know what our audience is and what are the objectives for the ADD. What's the mechanics? What does it look like? So we need to package into an art form. Next, pipelines. Everything starting from icons to big pro arts. You have the logos, some game substances. Next is the way, the frame, the way you build the frame. Very often, it's the frame that matters. And so, user interface might, there might be a mix between the background and the foreground, and some gaming substances may overlap. So building the frame is one of the key aspects. You have to avoid too much contrast. For example, so that's everything that relates to the user interface. And again, you can't do an ideal ADD during the pre-production. You can do some of the items, but later on, you have to tweak it, to fine-tune it, and case studies or examples are at the last item. And I like to show how to do it and how not to do it. So some good examples and bad examples. Next. I often encounter a situation when you have an artist who's an expert in design, illustration, animation, or maybe he's into painting and he's a novice into games. He's a novice in games and really fresh. And I believe that any digital artist has to know the main things about GDD, about the game design document. You're not supposed to read the entire document, but you need to know the main bits. You need to know the life cycle. What are the parts of the life cycle? And you also need to play this game. You need to know what the key mechanics are. And again, you can add some visual elements to make it stronger, to make those teasers stronger. And again, you also need to know some of the terminology of game design. and you also need to communicate closely with game designers. Moving on. So that's the growth stage. We had to switch gears and change some of our mentality. So we put together a great team of qualified experts, and such a team can come up with bestsellers, and a small team cannot do that. So the first thing that changed was, let me put it this way, the workload on the art director in terms of setting the tasks. So when it was a small team, the art director worked as an artist, as a VX artist, and provided feedback and controlled some features. In case there was some conflict with the game design, so the art director was always involved in that part, and he had so many things on their plate, he could go crazy, and they all had to plan and set objectives. Well, these are the side effects of being a small team. But when we became bigger, we had 8 artists, 4 UI specialists, and 3 FX animators, and each of those sub-teams had their own leads, and they could also take part in less important calls on typical features like setting up new units for a player or monsters. On the fixers, FX artists also set their own objectives. Then that list of objectives would be handed over to the project manager, and the project manager would put together the document with the objectives. And so it's not that you have one director who's in charge of everything. So you may delegate less important features and deal with the high-level substances that can help you to promote the project. Next is the way a typical pipeline looks, creating an illustration. So that's the pipeline for an artist. So you get a task, and that's stage number 1, and the last stage is integration. And now we'll go item by item. First, you get the task. And one of the typical errors is as follows. Suppose you have the lead and the game designer, and if they misinterpret the task, then the end result could be something completely different, and the entire chain would be undermined, and you have to redo it, and that would be too much overload. So, and also, I advise you to provide the right description. You need to study game design, you need to take part in those feature calls, you need to submit links to the game design, to the UX layout. So you need to take into account all of the wishes by the game designers, So once you set the task, the person who is supposed to implement it can provide their feedback, ask questions, and they need to do an estimate. We're very tough on estimates.
И если наличие оценки позволяет более
Having an estimate, having a score, helps you to plan release, tests, low tests, and etc. So you always need to have some kind of a assessment or evaluation. And we have a table of the basic sets. We don't have any grades. All of the guys have been successful. So we have a kind of an average deadlines for everyone. Now next stage is putting together references. So we need to go somewhere to find the right picture. And you also need to identify the tags that describe your task. So if you have a character, what's their profession, what's their nature, what's their features, what's their individual substance, and just need to come up with like 6 words that would describe the nature of the character that you have to portray. Then we go to ADD, and the introduction could help you with some references, some competitive projects. It might also feature some of our own references if it's at a later stage. So you take the sources and then you go to Pinterest. That's a great platform for realistic and fiction materials, fitting every genre, starting from fantasy to sci-fi and some crazy, weird stuff, and just don't spend too much time on it. Then you have Behance. That's a website for portfolio, but you might also copy-paste some of the cool solutions for your mobile products. So first time we released our project, we did a post on Behance. That's an awesome platform, and it helped us to really gain ground. ArtStation is more about cinematics, AAA projects with movies, with the great VX. It depends on your needs. All of the 3 platforms have the right functionality to come up with some kind of boards or maps, thematic maps, like sci-fi projects, for example, and you need only sci-fi pics. They've got the functionality you need. And the 4th one is Sketchfab. I'd really love that. You don't need a modeling, and you'll need to do a search to look for some room, to look for a tree. It won't ideally fit your project, but you might be able to come up with some silhouette, some kind of basic reference. So at least you don't need to start from scratch. And Googling. Google is the treasure trove of references. And Quaban, the Asian copy of Pinterest, offers a lot of interesting pics that are not available on Pinterest. Okay, once you come up with references, you need to get a clear idea of what you really need to take from here. So just need to be certain whether you like the texture, the clothing, the design, the geometry, the shapes, or just the picture overall. Otherwise, your reference list would be just a collection of pictures, you know, and you won't be able to recall what you really liked it. And ideally, you need to copy that particular element so that you put it on your mental library, in your visual mental library, somewhere on your on the shelf there in your brain. Moving on, you need to come up with thumbnails. So what it actually means, it's like a nail on your thumb. That's super small sketches, and you just needed to test the shape or the mise-en-scene. It doesn't need to have a lot of details. It might differ a little bit from your style, the style of the project. You just need to portray the idea. You might also use some text, maybe one sentence to communicate your idea. Just one short sentence, crisp and clear. Thumbnails are usually in black and white. I don't provide too much detail. So just focus on the key element. And mainly it's the center of the composition. Now, the color concept. So I focus on color concepts. I really like colors, shapes. I might do some lining, but I never do it in like the end shape. I don't want to waste too much time on it. Just a couple of points I took from the ADD. So here's the part that relates to shapes. We don't have squares or rectangles with sharp angles. They're always smoothed over. So as you can see, you never have those sharp corners. Again, that's part of the ADD, and every artist would see that. As for the color, I like clean colors, and it really works well with your mobile phone. I don't like gray colors. Sometimes you might see it in illustrations, but in gameplay, everything should be really bright and vivid. I don't like too much white in the frame. I don't like any flicks or overtone. Even, I mean, usually you will never find the white color in any photo. And for Royale, you know, for Rush Royale, we don't need any white color. We need vivid, vibrant colors. Next, we move to shape. So we add shapes, and we don't need any lining. We use the pen tool. It's a vector tool, and you can also use it in Photoshop. Now, what's this benefits of this tool? You can really distinguish all elements and your frame. That's a great foundation. In terms of the UI, you can add some Photoshop effects here, and that could help you to come up with a great line on the icon, or add some volume. I'm sure AI specialists understand what I'm talking about. So it's just a great tool, and it works great in the illustrative part and the illustrations part. 2D render. Now you've got this magic. Now there's a joke, you know, you can draw two ovals and now you draw the rest of the owl. Well, actually, the render depends on the on your painting skills, and there is no magic wand. It just boils down to your experience, and it comes with practice, analysis, decomposition of some case studies or references. It's easy to do if it's a long-lasting project. If it's fresh, then you have to put it down in the ADD, and I'd like to list some of the tools that have helped me to do it very fast. First, it's the clipping mask. So again, we talked about shapes, and you can add several layers onto it, and you can render it. And clipping mask allows you to stay within those shapes. As for the overall volume, you do it with the soft brush with your blurred ends, and you go the rubber, and you use rubber to add some accent to it, to accentuate something. And you can also add some layer with noise, with high degree of transparency, and a soft light effect. It makes these pictures a little bit grainy, and it might add some, you know, shades. And you can also add channeling to it. You can, you know, change it using channels, and then it adds a cinematographic side to it. Now let's move towards the end. Now we've got integration. We use the slice tool, and we add it to the project. The first is slicing. We use the slice tool. It's a very handy tool. We mainly took it from web design. So you can basically do like a matrix for your UI, and you can save in Photoshop any of the elements. You don't need to resave something 100 times or to come up with some scripts. This slice tool is really great. You can change something and just resave it. As for adding to the project, well, again, this is a kind of environment. It doesn't really matter whether it's Unity or Unreal. Any gaming artist needs to know how to navigate and how to add sprites and not to ruin everything. Well, that's the, you know, game designing 101, nothing really complicated. That's it. Now for the key takeaways. The first, you need to have the right documents, ADD, GDD, pipelines, guides. Over time, these documents help us to preserve the right ideas, the right concepts. Even if some artists leave the project, the stylistic idiosyncrasy of the project will remain. It will not turn into something completely different. That's it from me. Thank you. And I'd be happy to take your questions. Thank you, Igor. Now I've realized there is no magic button which makes it really beautiful in Photoshop, and that's a nuisance, you know. You knew that, and I just learned it right now. There's no magic button in Photoshop that makes your pictures cool. We have a couple of questions, and we'll just take some of them, and the rest will be in the Telegram chat. So let's start with a few ones. What about the fear of launching a new project? What can you advise to those who come up with projects from scratch? Well, it's all about my path, the path of a samurai. In the gaming industry has the so-called game jams. They are super fast. Well, some could last for a month, some last 2 days. And when you take part in those events, when you work with new teams, you overcome the fear of creating something new, because you have to invent something in a fast time frame, and you just get this experience. And you also need to come up with those portfolio projects with so-called pet project. You just need to start to create something. I've tried working in Unreal and Unity. I like both engines. So just don't be afraid. No fear. Have no fear. A question. Do you often look at the style of the artist, or you're after trends only? Now, Rush Royale is a case in point. We definitely take into account the style of the artist. It's a part of those mainstream, it's part of the trends like Brawl Stars and some cartoons, Ricky Morton. So you definitely need to search for artists who can do in the same vein. Again, it depends on the project. I also do not rule out a situation when you can teach a person to do this. You just need to have a great ADD that outlines all the guidelines, and I'm sure they'll be able to pick it up. So we had the first project, Hawk, and that was my first project where I had the art director. I was not able to manage it. But and here in Rush Royale, I think that was great, particularly on shapes. So if you use all of these tools, then the end result will be very much what we need. Okay? Does it answer the question? Yes, fine. And next question. Do you use the Figma server to prototype interface elements, UI? Well, my report is not on that, but when we had an increase in our team, they moved to Figma. So we have a great UI team, quite a strong one, awesome guys. They are into all hot things, and they suggest moving to that server. No heavy PSDs. Now, the big benefit is then when we redo something, redo some UI of some plan, we change one element, and it changes everywhere across the board. That's so stunning. But I don't have any PSD which weigh 3 gigabytes, so no logs. So I'm so happy I don't have them anymore. Definitely, we use that server. Well, we have so many exciting questions, so we have to move them to the chat, and I hope you join the chat and help the guys with your experience. Thank you, Igor. And the cats were cute.
Мой кот не пришел.
Well, my cat is not here. My cat let me down. Well, better luck next time. Thank you so much. And everyone is welcome to our Telegram chat, and our guests will reply to those questions which they haven't had the time to reply here. And I'd like to remind you that at the end, we're going to have a quiz, and we'll have great accessories from Oak, our partner. That's several headsets, several sets, 3 sets of accessories and 2 sets. So we'll go to those who ask the most exciting questions, and that includes a keyboard, a mouse, and a headset. So you have, please stay tuned until the end. And now Anton will transform from the host to a speaker, and together with Olga Domina, they will talk about putting together your portfolio for review. Hi.
Hi, Olga. Yes, hi, everyone. So, can you please turn on the presentation for us? And did you prepare it? For sure, already. Well, here it is. Yeah, let's take a look at it. We're going to present it together. Olga will speak about hiring artists from HR side of matter, and I will speak about it from business side of matter, and all the specialists taking part in reviewing the portfolio and decision making. Yeah, in general, the same what Anton mentioned, but now we see it on the slide. So we're going to address one and the same matter from 2 sides. So and why can we speak about that? First of all, let me tell you about myself. I've been in HR for 10 years, and over the last 4 years, I've been dealing with art recruiting. I'm hiring the artists. And since my work is in hiring artists, per week I'm reviewing like 100 of portfolios, maybe even more. And now about me, just a couple of words. I'm working as a creative director in big games. I've been working for 20 years with computer graphics. I've been an art director for 10 years. And I've been through all the pipelines, everything, and I've been working with artists for a long time. Right now, we are creating the Academy of Games Development in the IGRA Hub project, Game Hub project, which is aimed at young novice artists who just start entering the industry. If you're interested, then Google it up, please. I've hired more than 70 artists, maybe more. Yeah, I can tell a lot of interesting stories. So what should you think first when you decide to create your portfolio, to compile your portfolio? There are 2 options. First is for yourself. You just draw some interesting pictures. You want to share them with the world. That's why you're creating a portfolio. But if we speak about positioning yourself as an artist, a professional artist in game development in this case, then you should make it professionally. You should create your portfolio professionally. It should be like your face of an artist. So the first question that should be answered is what kind of genre you like? What is your cup of tea in terms of genres and the style of the game, style of art? Having Googled, you might find some studios close to you or in the country or even abroad that might be quite interesting for you. For sure, you should analyze several options and not just upload your portfolio and wait for some luck. So you should select the Select the studio and prepare the portfolio for this specific studio. So that's fine. We've defined why we're creating our portfolio, so we should understand how to upload it and where to place it and how to do it. If we're speaking about searching for a vacation, for a vacant position, for a vacancy on some specific platforms, there you describe the projects you worked out in chronological way. So anyway, you shouldn't forget about portfolio because, for example, me being a recruiter, when I first meet a person, first of all, I'll take a look at this person's portfolio. And if I like it, if I get interested in that, then I will start reading about experience. The second important thing is, like when we speak about professional portfolio, it should be placed on such platforms as ArtStation and Behance. And these are two platforms for artists. Then DeviantArt is like a portfolio for yourself or just fun. There is always a question when we speak about making a portfolio. There is a question like what to do if my works are under NDA. Like I've signed this agreement with my contractor, with my client, and I can't just take and show you works that I created. It's actually quite popular situation. I mean, it often happens, and employers understand that. But unfortunately, there is no other way rather than creating something new in your personal time, in your leisure time. You can actually upload these NDA works on some Google Disk or send a link, or you can share your screen during the interview. You can share the screen and display these works, but it's going to be just an addition to your portfolio, not the main one. One more popular question, whether you can show in the portfolios the work in process objects and objects. Yeah, of course you can, of course. Yeah, because usually it takes some time. It takes a lot of time. And sometimes you might want to show it before it's finished and finalized. But nevertheless, it shouldn't be like too many VIPs, WIPs. You should show the finalized work, the finished works, of course. The portfolio should be professional. That's why you should finish your works. Just a couple of words about CV and resume. You should save up some time and make your resume for us not to play a detective agency. Because each artist has a story he can tell. Where he or she studied, what kind of professional experience they have. If they don't have it, then what they did after they graduated from their universities or colleges. Actually, the resume may be done in some artistic way, with like, you know, part of your soul in it. Not just you just make the Word document with a CV template or something like that. Just take a look how others are doing that and just use your own idea. Yeah, this is your resume, your CV is some part of our interview with you. I'd like to say just a couple of words about this detective agency that during the interviews, we are asking for different links for your social media pages or other resources where you might have some initial steps in the career. Having looked through your portfolio and comparing this with other portfolios, we start going deep into this type of search. We're trying to find out what else they can do. And the more we know, the better for you, the better it is for you. So it's better to generate a resume with a lot of links for other resources. So tell us as much as possible about yourself. I'd like to add just a couple of words about resume. As a person who carries out interviews with artists without any resumes, and after that, I actually asked for the resume for a potential manager.
Я очень часто на вопрос, а ты можешь прислать свое резюме, получаю ответ, что прислать? Поэтому
When I ask this question, like send the resume to me, please, I often get the answer like, what would you like me to send to you? Like they don't know. Yeah, it's like an umbrella thing. You never know when you need it, right?
А теперь давайте немножко поговорим о таких маленьких секретиках, лайфхаках.
Let's now discuss some kind of life hacks that need to be borne in mind when making a portfolio. So the first 5 works that you are showing in the gallery, they should be the best ones, the most beautiful ones, illustrative ones, because first 5 works on ArtStation and first 5 on Behance first 6 are shown on Behance. And I am being a person who is searching for the suitable portfolios on these resources. I usually look through the first 5 works. And if I'm fine with that, if they meet the criteria, then I will be opening the portfolios and look further. So you should bear this in mind. The second important point, if your portfolios are some videos or you're preparing some demo reel, don't make it longer than 30 seconds. I guess it's the most optimal time for one video. If you have more materials, then create several videos. It's easier for the person assessing your work. The third most popular fact, it often happens in a way that the person sends the application for the vacant position and the portfolio is in archive. And archive, you can reach the archive via the link, and the link is in email. So please don't do that. You are making this too complicated. Don't do that. In this way, you are risking actually too, because the person might not go that deep and that far. So yeah, if the portfolio is in archive, and archive is via the link, and it's getting outdated. And if you forgot to update in that link, and we have it saved in our database, the old one, if you're making it on ArtStation or Behance, it's always relevant there. It's always up to date, and we have this updated link as well, and we are always tracing the progress that happened. Let me add about the number of works. There should be more than 5, a little bit more than 5 at least. If there are 3 works and they're cool ones, we don't understand where they come from space, from vacuum, and where's your path? Where are your initial works? Again, we are starting our detective agency, and we spend a lot of time for investigation. And we would actually choose the person who has more works in his portfolio. Here is an example. Cool works. Everything is nice, but how this person came to these works? What's her background? What are the adjacent tasks, for example? If we have some project that is similar to this in terms of style, but we don't know whether we hire this person and then she'll be able to solve the tasks that we give her. You should fill out the profile. There is the information about you. There are some links to other mass media pages, some links to other projects that they participated in. The more links you have, the more professional you look. And our task is to be professionals. You should add the links to your other profiles. In Instagram, for example, that worked before, people usually keep their personal works, some kind of interesting. It's interesting to look at them. Well, there is a template at ArtStation. There are gaming works in Instagram. There is something artistic and traditional, and we also need that. We're also interested in that. And the link to that would just be fine. Work on the heading. Place the compilation of your works. Yiyam will be presenting his presentation a little bit later, like 10 minutes ago, before the start of this. We saw in his presentation his reference to his portfolio, and we believe that this one is an ideal example of portfolio.
Посмотрите потом отдельно. Здесь и в шапке лучше, ну, одна из характерных работ
On the
настроенческих.
heading here, on the main one, the main is very interesting work. It reflects the mood, and about is also filled out. So take a look at the likes and the followers and what he follows after. Yeah, it also characterizes the person very much as a professional. You see the circle of his interests here. Even when we study the portfolio of a candidate, of a successful candidate, we become also richer. And the real avatar, real
с человеком,
yes,
видеть
that's you. So the real avatar and real photo,
коллеги, с кем нам было бы здорово
so that we
работать.
understood how this person looks like.
И на что мы, собственно, смотрим, да? В первую очередь это
So what are we looking at?
стилистика
First of
проекта.
all, we're looking at the correspondence to the project stylistics, even at the stage of recruiter manager, who is not an artist. But we understand that art recruiters look through different portfolios.
Скажем так, хорошо нарисованное от не очень хорошо нарисованного, да, и по стилистикам,
And we, of course,
естественно, мы можем оценить. И
might say the good one from the bad one, of course. Let's take a look at the example that there is a wonderful artist who is creating some works on some dark objects. Yeah, they will not, this person will not suit to our project, Dark Fantasy, for example. Then the next one is software that was used for the work. The next one, Anton actually mentioned the quality of work. It's important for us for sure, and the progress of the artist. So when we have a portfolio of 3 works that were uploaded in one day, it's really hard to understand what was happening to this person before, whether this person is an artist or not. Maybe these are not his works at all. So here, recruiter or the manager will think whether to hire such person or not. And one more popular question, there has been a lot of them recently, like what to do if you have some works from some classes, you know, whether you can put them into your portfolio. Of course you can, but don't forget that the works done during the classes, during the courses, training courses, it's not your individual work. It's a work with a person, with a supervisor who gives you some advice, who gives comments, and after some rounds of iterations, here is your work. So after the courses, after the training courses, you should work on the knowledge you gained and make something similar, but maybe rework it a little bit, make it on your own, create it on your own. So first of all, we'll see whether you are able to digest all the information that you got during the training courses, yeah? And for juniors, it's very important to see how a person easily can digest the new information or not. Speaking about the works presentation, yeah, it's an important stage, and I mention it all the time. This is how an artist frames his work. And why do we need this frame? It is needed to enrich your work. Let's speak about the presentation. So you should show your search. You should show how you came to the result.
Там это разжевывается, подача.
If you
Очень
studied
важно
it during some
просто.
courses of Smirnov or Nurgaliev, yeah, it is actually mentioned there.
Персонажей, объектов,
Show the
локаций.
different
Много
options of one and the same characters or locations or objects.
Какая-то пойдет финальный рендер, какие-то пойдут позже. Это всё
Some of them will
очень
be
важно.
finally rendered, some of them will be done later. Maybe
А,
this framing
Для
actually
нас это
increases
сигнал
the
рассмотреть ее получше. Поданная работа, к ней уделяется больше внимания.
increases the significance.
Дальше. Из одной работы можно сделать 3-5 картинок,
There
которые
might be 3 and 5
расставят
images
в
which
целую
are
историю.
rooted in one,
Придумайте
for
имена,
example.
придумайте
Come up
легенды
with the
вашим
names,
объектам,
come up
которые
with the
вы рисуете
legends
людям.
and lores for the people, for the characters you are drawing. Actually, you can create the whole world.
Работы, сопровожденные вот этим лором, вот этим игровым миром, это же супер интересно.
And
Это
these works described by the lore, it speaks about the creativity of a person, of the artist, and the multifaceted personality of this person, of the artist. So here is the example.
Даша Ажерина, по-моему, кандидат, который
I think this is Dasha, the candidate who we hired eventually.
не вижу, есть ли в работах подпись какая-то.
I don't see whether there is there is something written here. I think it's gaming graphics. I mean, gaming is the concept of the character for games. Yes, here we see the emotions of the character, some of his effects, how he shoots, how he heals, how he has these blasts of cheese. Yeah, he's a cheesemaker. So we can see different situations and scenarios. Yeah, I think it's very cool, so cool. It means that the person is not encased in his small web, but he thinks in a wider area. Here's a more complicated example. Here you can see the concept of a character who is beautiful and nice, and dark background and the logo of the project, different options of hairstyle. Minimum of text, but the whole story is told in static. Some works for yourself, what it means. Olga mentioned already. Like the person went through 3 training classes, for example, 3 courses, and we have the knowledge and we understand which works come from which class, you know. Everyone knows about Smirnov's book. If you have some books of Smirnov in your portfolio, it's good, but think about the development of it. Think about the world where the character might live, who is going through the pages of this book. There might be this big book and like small little books, like the kids of this big book. Maybe they have their legs and they come home to this bigger book at night. There is also fun art. You can take any game you like. You can copy or you can draw your own understanding of The Witcher, for example, or Mario, for example. You can take and draw your own option. It's going to be cool. Yeah, it means that the initiative will be noticed, will be praised. And also the copies with reference to the author. If you're copying something, it means that you're learning the style of another person. You're communicating with person. You can make a copy of any work we have. Wonderful example, we have copied the hyper-casual games. The artists redraw everything, the programmers created the code with the same logic. It's clear that it doesn't go anywhere, but when you copy, you discover the ways of creating something new. You can create something new by using the same methods. Here is the recipe how to create a portfolio from scratch. Okay, time to continue. Yeah. First is presentation. Next is the range of your skills. We also pay attention to range of your skills. If you went through one training course, you acquired one kind of skill. Second training course, you have two sets of skills. Yeah. We try to find out your area of interest. We try to find out your inclinations. And an artist for us, in our studios, in my studio, artists are learning how to model. In order to better understand how to draw the concept. The artists are creating the models by themselves. Some of them go even further. They are creating the rigs, the skeletons for animation. And the more versatile the person is, the more expensive he is. And this is our goal, not just to be an artist with some set of skill, just one set of skill. The wider your skills are, the better it is for you. The idea of the work. In every work, I would like to see the idea. Some thought, mise-en-scene, except for the posture when we're preparing for the modeling. A kind of game devity. This is it's a created term. It's something that should look, what you're creating, it should look like something that is already creating in the games. Completeness. Whether you complete your works or whether you stop doing them, working on them in the middle. And the work works for yourself. If you have some works for yourself, it means that you are able to develop yourself and to train yourself, to teach yourself. It's very important as well. Yeah, shortly about some specialties, 2D characters, anatomy, and if you don't have some basic knowledge about anatomy, recruiters and directors of the studios who are not artists, they even can actually tell. They can tell whether this person sees the anatomy, understands the anatomy. There still should be anatomy in a stylized characters. And the quality of rendering, then 2D locations, completeness as well, and the correct way of building them. Next is 3D. We are looking at the topology, and Vadim Udaltsov mentioned that in such project as Stonington Hall, the topology is not important because at the very end, well, ultimately the objects are static. Characters are very much serious about topology. Well, topology is the correct building of this kind of mesh, so that animations were correct. Layouts. You should show and put the layouts of your characters, and we'll see whether you are ready to work in the real pipeline, or we should teach you the concept you are modeling from. It's very important to show the concepts. And the first thing you are going to be checked is whether you are able to create the model based on the concept of the author. The task is to transfer the shapes and the volumes very precisely. For a 3D artist, it's very important. And the last thing is rendering or render. The work that is rendered on some kind of engine, V-Ray or Maxwell, you can also put that into your portfolio.
вес объектов. Вес объектов самое главное.
Next
Всё
is
остальное
animators,
это
the weight of objects. The
невесомо.
first mistake is that objects
Тяжеленные порхают, как бабочки,
don't
потом
have any weight. The
чувствуется
robots are
вдохновение,
like
значит,
butterflies
этого
are
нет.
jumping,
И
and
главное,
people don't believe, eyes are
понятно,
don't
бабочка
believe,
без
are,
повестки,
cannot be
будет
deceived.
сдувать ветер, она
Yeah.
должна бороться, ей трудно
The
лететь в
butterfly,
пространстве и так далее.
on the other
Часто один
hand,
из принципов
should be
анимации
very
это
light.
не
Yeah,
без
it should
этого.
fight against the wind,
Один из
so on and
принципов.
so forth. So then 12 principles thing, we know that, we understand that, and we can again tell it at once. Rigging is a skeleton
С помощью которого потом происходит анимация и 2D, и 3D.
with the help of which the animation is done.
Вот
2D,
вот
3D
вот
animation
модель
is done.
рига.
And here is the example of 2D
Снизу
rigging.
сверху
And on the
анимация, снизу, да,
bottom,
двигается риг.
on top of it, there is the
Специалисты, которые
animation.
будут уже в проект брать человека, они будут понимать, подходит он им или нет. Дальше UI. Правильность.
User
Правильный
interface.
масштаб. Маленькую
The
иконку
correct
не надо
scale.
показывать во весь экран. Вот
You shouldn't show the small icon, the small
иконка задумана,
thumbnail for the whole
чуть
scheme,
больше показать. У
screen.
меня вот огромный монитор, 1,20 м, я вижу вот
If I have a
такую иконку.
big monitor, for example, a big
Я
screen,
даже не смогу правильно
the icon should be also small on my big screen anyway.
И знание теории
Next,
нужно
laconic features and the knowledge of theory. You should know how the interfaces are created for user interface. So summary, let's summarize what we now discussed. Let me repeat again that the portfolio is the artist's face, and it's assessed in the first place. So when you decide to upload some new work into your portfolio, you should think how it characterizes you, whether it gives you some points to you as a professional artist. And the second thing you need to think about is that if you want to develop as a character artist, maybe you shouldn't upload some location concept because it will confuse your employer.
Но мы его найдем все равно. Поговорим. Так, все, у нас все. На самом деле сказать еще много.
Actually, we finished, but of course I can add a lot, and there are a lot of questions as well.
Вы много дали для размышления, да, почвы для размышления.
Olga, Anton, you gave a lot of food for thought,
Больших и даже я знаю,
for
насколько
pondering.
будет развернутый ответ. Вот. Давайте я один задам, а все остальное уже.
Let me ask one question, and the rest will be done in Telegram. Don't forget that to go into Telegram chat. First question: if the person at 30 thought that or understood that he would like to become an artist in game development, what's your attitude to that? So the person doesn't have experience and he thinks that he can draw, that he can create, he can become an artist. So actually, age is never a problem. If person would like to do something, then there is a desire and strive to learn something new. Doesn't matter, you can be 30, 40, or 50, even more. If you really want something, then just go for it. And you'll be just fine. Yeah.
Я кейс расскажу. У меня история.
Let me share with you one case I had.
В декретном сидела с двумя детьми.
There was one girl.
Сидела до 30 лет.
She was sitting she had the maternity leave with 2 kids. She graduated from the university, some art degree, but she never had any experience actually drawing on some engines. But on the paper, she draws wonderfully.
Вот через нашу академию в Игрохабе и с помощью просто, вот в 2 словах, если что такое академия, есть наставники и есть почти реальные проекты.
So we
Вот
have an academy, and there are supervisors, there are mentors, and with the help of mentor in our academy, she managed to handle Photoshop and to transfer her skill of drawing on paper to draw on a platform. She draws, she creates the concept, she does everything, and she does it very fast and easily. Everything is possible. Yeah, I think this is the answer to the question, and the rest questions will be answered in the chat, where I hope everyone will go from Contact, Twitch, and YouTube. Thank you very much. And our next speaker here is waiting, is expecting when he will to start presenting. And it's going to be Marlon Nunes. So there is a mistake. I thought it's going to be a Guillaume. Marlon, yeah. Sorry for that. And he's going to speak about digital humans. Yes, digital humans. So why we included it into game development section, to work with digital humans for films. We would like to show the level of complexity the games are going to acquire soon. Digital humans, it's a sculpturing, and it's very precise work in order to transfer the real face, the real body into digital. It's called like a photorealism, and the game and content in the games will develop over the time and will come closer to photorealism. So today, Marlon is going to speak about pipeline of creating these digital humans, these most complicated models that will be representing the importance in the future in the games. That's it. Over to you.
Hello, guys. Thanks for the invite. So yeah, as Anton was saying, like digital humans pretty much how the future is going to be represented. So, and in this presentation, I'm going to be talking not only about how the digital humans are creating, just by giving a practical example, but also going to talk a little bit what is a digital human and the type of uses are going to be happening in the industry that are happening now and are going to happen in the future. So currently sharing my screen. I hope you guys can see the screen now. So, but let's start just a little bit about who am I. So my name is Marlon Nunes. I'm from Spain. I'm specialized in digital humans, and I've been working in the industry for the last 10 years. I mostly work in TV shows, films, and video games. I don't know if you hear about Love, Death, and Robots from Netflix. It's a great show. You guys haven't seen it. I've been working also in a bunch of different games like Need for Speed, and also different trailers like the Game of Thrones trailers or the last one from Assassin's Creed. And in just to let you a little cool fact about myself, at least in terms of sculpting, in 2017 I had the pleasure to travel to Los Angeles and and compete in a let's say ZBrush competition with some of the best artists in the world, and I was lucky enough to win the competition. So all of these have gained me a whole bunch of like experience over the last years to be able to create all those humans that I'm going to be talking later. And just here on the corner, I just wanted to show you this character because this is the very first character that I created on my first year. That was in 2007 when I started sculpting. And I think one of the things that I want to summarize in this talk is about the fact that you guys can make it. Even if it looks complex, I will try to break it down so you guys don't get overwhelmed. But at the end of the day, just about the methodology and mostly just about practice, right? So just to show you that it can happen from zero to hero, okay? I think one of the first questions that I want to ask you is just a random question. From these two characters that you see right now on the screen, which one do you think it looks better? Technically speaking, all of them, they share the same elements, right? They have some complex hair, they have the bird, they have even anatomy involved. But in my opinion, there is one of those characters that is lacking that spark of life, right? It's lacking something, which means that this digital human or this CG avatar is just not working. So I'm just going to leave it as an open question. I guess in Telegram or the chat, you guys can start answering your question. Left or right is kind of the answer that I would like to hear. Anyway, a little bit of the index. So first, I'm going to be talking about digital humans, then about how to creating those, and a little bit about the process. So what is a digital human? A digital human is a form of ourselves in the virtual world. Let me just put the volume down. I wanted to show you these two videos here. Let me just play them just quickly so they just play in the background. Let me just, there you go. So if you guys want to know more about digital humans and want to get more in depth about what is a digital human and what are the type of uses, I really recommend you to get in YouTube and type DigiDoc. DigiDoc is a TED Talk from Digital Domain. In this case, is the senior director of software, Doug Rubble. They created a CG version of himself, and he was interacting with a motion capture suit and also a facial system. He was interacting in real time. So as Anton was saying before, like the way the world is going to be represented in the future is going to be about that, a representation of ourselves. It can be realistic, it can be stylized, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to be keeping more in the realistic side though, but it's very interesting for you to double check, okay? Let me just jump in. So what applications can have digital humans? I think one of the most popular ones are the digital influencers. I guess here the audience is going to be younger, so they know what I'm talking about. Perhaps you know about Lil Miquela. Lil Miquela is probably the most famous digital avatar online. She holds over in Instagram like millions of followers. She has her own, clothing brand. She launches music videos. I will ask you to check the videos. They're actually even cool. Somewhat, the music is not bad. And the most interesting thing is that it's just a digital avatar. It's just a CG face on top of a real human in this case. And with that pretty much, it just interacts with the audience as a human, let's say. So that's one of the uses that is happening. Obviously, right now you have a whole bunch of different avatars. It can be more realistic or less realistic, but at the end of the day, the idea is the same. One of the other areas where digital humans can start happening is under custom support representatives. So for example, in the future, if you have a problem, I don't know, with your device and you need to call the custom service, instead of talking to a real human, perhaps you are going to talk to a CG human, which can hold probably a real conversation just using artificial intelligence. So that's one of the cool things that is going to happen in the future. And one thing that is very important is that humans don't want to lose that connection between themselves. And just by representing a real CG avatar in front of your phone, your mobile phone, or either the screen, it can make the interaction just easier. Also, for example, healthcare advisors, that for me is a very interesting one. The next time you go to the doctor, at the end of the day, the way he's going to check up what's happening with you, it's just about a whole bunch of different questions that are going to be driven by AI. Game characters and obviously CJ characters for production. So the level of applications when it comes to digital human is kind of endless. So it's very interesting. So what is the future, right? So the future is pretty much already start happening a little bit now with everything that's happening with the metaverse, and also how the artificial intelligence is also improving over the time. If you guys want to know more about what the future can hold us, I really recommend you this book by Yuval Noah. It's one of my favorite writers, and in this book he talks about humanity in general, the origin of humanity, the present of humanity, and how humanity what is going to lead humanity over the next century. And it's very interesting because somewhat his predictions were happening over the last years, which is very interesting. So let me, in this talk, I'm going to be mostly covering, as I said, the artistic side, which is the cool part. In this case, let's call it generation. So in this generation, it's all about creating the 3D model, right? Creating the textures, the shaders, and also creating the skeleton, which I'm a character artist myself. I don't work doing the skeleton. I just focus on the model itself. On top of that, which is not going to be covered in this presentation, obviously there is the animation. What I wanted to put animation here, doesn't really matter how well done is your character. It can be a mobile game, it can be a hyper realistic character, it doesn't really matter. If the animation fails, it's not going to work. And that's something that happens a lot in the movies. I don't know if you guys happen that you watch one of the Star Wars movie and you notice that one of the characters is blinking like strange or something. So there is where animation actually comes into place, because it's very important to be sure that not only it looks realistic, but moves realistic. And everything that comes with facial capture is actually complex enough. And obviously intelligence, artificial intelligence, in the future, a lot of this kind of stuff are going to be generated by artificial intelligence. So not necessarily you are going to need to animate all of it, because at the end of the day, it's just, you know, logarithms that just interact between each other. I put this QR code for you guys to check. This is the academy where I'm one of the co-founders, and here we teach how to create CG characters. If you guys are interested, you can just take your QR code. All right, and the last thing that I want to talk before jumping into more like the process is about meta-humans. If you guys haven't heard about it, I think it's the time to already know what is a meta-human. So last year, the Epic team, they launched something that is very cool. It's pretty much a whole library of characters where you can create your own character in real time just by moving parameters. What is so handy? If you're into game dev and you want to create your own, you know, game, or you want to create your own experience, now you don't need necessarily to hire a character artist. You can just use this library that is just meant for you, and then obviously Epic is going to get some royalty from it. But the cool thing is that it's going to allow you to present your history, present your work. I know a lot of friends of mine that they're creating, I don't know, their own short films. They are creating their own, especially when it comes to short films for cinematics and this kind of stuff. It's extremely handy because you already have the characters that look nice, and you just have to cover just the next area that is going to be animation and, you know, like everything that comes to camera handling, etc. But at least the characters, that is something that is extremely technical, it's already covered, which is great. So if you guys haven't heard about it, this stuff is free. You just have to download the Unreal Engine, and it will come with it. So you can already start playing with it. Very cool stuff. So let's talk about the process. I think one of the most important things when it comes to creating a CG character, as I said before, is make sure that it's alive. So in this process, what I want to discuss mostly is about what makes a character look alive. So first, obviously, you need to gather the references. When it comes to references, when it comes mostly to likeness, celebrities, when you try to especially achieve realism, it's very important to you have a frontal picture and a profile picture. When my clients normally come to me, they ask me, for example, so especially when they have to make dead celebrities, and they ask me if I can do it. The first thing that I ask them is, give me a frontal picture and a profile picture, because with those two elements, I'm able to cover the volume of the area. I don't necessarily need the quarter view, but at least I need the frontal and the profile picture. The frontal to get the proportions. So the likeness is all about proportions and distances. Distance between the eyes, distance between the nostrils, the corner of the mouth, the zygomatic bone. All these distances is what makes that face more or less look alike. And then the profile is very important because it's going to also establish how the eyeball is inside of the cavity of the orbital. The orbital is this region that we have here in our map, in the skull. So all this kind of stuff is very important. Then it comes to sculpting. I'm going to give you some few tips when it comes to sculpting, but the sculpting is all about anatomy. Before in the portfolio review, I think the guys were mentioning that anatomy is very important, and I'm telling you, it's all about anatomy. It's all about anatomy eventually, because you are going to learn the technique. The technique itself is actually not difficult. What is difficult, from my opinion, is just the knowledge and mostly the methodology. You just need to get that right knowledge and the right methodology to be able to accomplish pretty much everything you want, right? Which is very important. And then I'm going to be talking about grooming. Grooming is creating hair. So there are different approaches when it comes to grooming, when it comes to creating hair for realistic characters and also for game characters. But in game characters, most of the time, just with hair cards, you can handle it. But when it comes to grooming, it's all about eventually simulation of the splines, etc. I'm going to give you a small practical example in this character, because in this character specifically, I use 2 different techniques. And I'm going to show you what are the pros and the cons of these 2 different bridal techniques, 2 different softwares. At the end of the day, you just want to make sure that it looks nice, but it's very important to understand that every software is going to get you somewhere, either faster or either better. And finally, look depth. Look depth is everything that comes to the materials, everything that comes to the shader. So when we talk about shader, we talk about skin, for example, what makes the skin looks like that. What makes the eyes look like that, what makes the hair looks like that. Eventually it's about the surface, how it interacts with the light. So you need to put all this texture into place to make sure that the shader and the surface behaves in a way that it looks realistic, right? So as I said here, having the right methodology is key, right? Just to sum up a little bit about the software, if you guys are interested about which softwares I'm using for this specific project, I'm handling the sculpt inside ZBrush. I'm doing the rendering in Maya. I'm part of the hair in Maya as well, using Action. I'm using Houdini for doing the dreadlocks here. And for the texturing process, I'm using Mari, Photoshop, and Painter. And then when it comes to clothing, I'm using Marvelous Designer, which is great for clothing, okay? So, anatomy. So, why anatomy is so important? This is just the mood board from the likeness course in Art Heroes. Anatomy itself is not important to know everything about it, but you need to know what is called the landmarks. What do you see? I wanted to show you here this book. This book is called Anatomy of Facial Expression. I have it here. This book is a Bible. If you're a character artist, in my opinion, either if you are, I don't know, like into stylization, into realism, or just creating on a mobile games character, I think it still is very relevant to hold the proper knowledge when it comes to anatomy. And this book is very, very handy. It's not very expensive. I think something around $50 or something, but I'm telling you, you're going to use it for the rest of your life. So it's very important for you guys to know, at least to have the right also sources when it comes to anatomy. Okay. Sculpting, right? So sculpting, there are different ways to sculpt. You can sculpt in all different ways. You can use, for example, here I'm showing you my Gandhi sculpt that I created like 5 years ago. I'm using here one methodology that I decided to call the method of the spheres. If you think about it, the human face is round, it's organic. Most of the shapes are going to be somewhat spherical. So I try to approach the skull and also the facial anatomy in a more primitive way, just by plugging some spheres and then merging them together, and from there starting the sculpt. Because at the end of the day, when you are sculpting, you need to simplify things. And I will show you later. The most important is to make sure that you make the initial volumes correctly. The second option that I show you here on the right, is the methodology that I'm using right now, and is the one that I do believe is the best one for anyone who wants to create and sculpt faces. Again, stylized or realistic, I approach everything the same. And by this one, what you are doing pretty much, you are looking for landmarks. So for example, here, what I'm trying to sculpt here is the basic shape of the skull. This tiny stroke that you see here is not accidental. Here I'm looking for a temporal line. Later on we can talk about anatomy, but I'm looking for very specific shapes, as you can see. Then here, what I'm going to do here in this area is looking for the zygomatic bone. All of these landmarks actually create some volumes in the face that make it look real. So it's very important to have the right methodology and knowing anatomy again. And then just carry on with the sculpt and start getting the orbital cavity. As you can see, here's where the eyeballs are going to be happening. Trying to push more the nasal bone. I'm pushing here the ears. And then from there, we can already start placing what is the fat. Every time when people tell me, like, what is the most important thing to know sculpting a face? I think when it comes to anatomy specifically, even if you should know how the skull works, how the skull shape works, I think to understand that most of the volumes that happen on the face is actually fat. It's not muscles. Muscles in the face are so thin that you almost don't notice it. But the volumes that are happening in our face is either the amount of fat or the lack of fat. So it's very important to understand that by the time you're trying to translate the reference that you have into ZBrush, okay? So it's very important. So I'm just going to give you some small tips for you guys for the sculpting process. So the first thing, obviously, I'm going to be a pain in the butt here, but no anatomy, right? So again, I just put this scan code where you can buy this book. I don't get any commission here. I just recommend it everywhere that I go, knowing anatomy. I just want to give you a good example about, I need to come back, about bad anatomy from my understanding. Here, for example, in this sculpt of Rambo, in my opinion, the proportions are okay, but the lack of anatomy behind it doesn't make it look realistic. So by the time this guy is going to be rendered, something is going to look wrong. I don't know if you remember the first layer, yeah, the first image that I show you, left or right, in my opinion, is that it's like those small areas where we don't focus enough, they just break the character completely. The second one, don't subdivide. Try to keep it low poly, and this applies to everything when it comes to 3D. The major volumes happen with a low poly division. Something that I tell my students all the time when we are blocking out the likeness is please don't subdivide the mesh. What happened when you subdivide the mesh? When you subdivide the mesh, for example, here on the left, we have a very good example where one of my students subdivide too fast, and then they started sculpting some of the school landmarks that, in my opinion, are already wrong. And the reason why is because the more subdivided is the mesh, the most difficult is to treat the surface. Because it's too subdivided, you are going to make more irregular shapes accidentally. Here on the right, we have a very good example of a good shape. I want to make this image big just so you can see. I don't know if you can see with the compression over the internet, but if you can see the quads here, you can tell that this guy, even if he's symmetrical, here is still the guy symmetrical, you can tell that the likeness is there. And this was done by one of my students on the first session. And for me, it was like, man, you did it. You actually look for the major volumes by not subdividing the mesh. So again, when you are creating characters, just plain low poly as possible, okay? And then keep it smooth. Once you start subdividing, don't get crazy. I just want to show you scan data from the scan store. And as you can see, the scan data, it's most of the time it's clean, it's smooth. Forget about the hair and all these, scanning imperfections. But when it comes to the skin itself, when it comes to the major volumes, the human face is smooth. So keep it smooth, okay? That's very, very important. And then remember the bad student that did that horrible first approach. With the right methodology and also with the wheel, because this guy pushed a lot of times to create this, he got this at the end of the course. So one thing that I want to repeat again here is like, you guys can do it, no worries. I understand that sometimes it's difficult when it comes mostly about likeness and character creation. It can be frustrating, and we can get, in the valley of sucking before getting out of there and start, getting some good results. But at the end of the day, you can do it. Just having the right methodology is very important. And again, something very important here, just ask for feedback. When you're working in the studio, it's very important to ask for the colleagues or ask for your leads for feedback. And something that is relevant is try to be constructive also when you are giving feedback. Try to make sure that the person understands and is able to handle all that information to translate that into their scope or into their character. That's why art directors, in my opinion, are more, you can understand an art director is good when he has soft skills rather than hard skills. I know art directors that, in my opinion, not necessarily are the best artists, but their soft skills make them possibly the best art director in this case. And at the end of the day, you need to know how to communicate to be able to translate that. So details. This is a little bit more technical area, but when it comes to methodology, I wanted to show you also having the right methodology can help you to make some work faster. And I want to talk about porosity. When it comes to porosity, you have these renders and you see all this level of detail and you kind of get like, oh my God, that's a lot of work, creating all these pores, etc. If you think about it, perhaps it's not so difficult. And I just want to show you quickly. I just want to jump out of here. I guess I need to share my screen back again fully. Let me just share it back again, just 1 second. Share the screen, the full screen. Just that when I share the full screen, it kind of goes slow. I just want to show you this practical example. I hope you guys can see ZBrush. You can guys see ZBrush right now.
Yes.
Cool, awesome. So in this case, what I want to show you just quickly is how I can translate porosity from scan data into a mesh. Just quickly, it's going to take me just 1 minute. Here you have the scan data from the scan store, the same one that I showed you before. It happens to have 7 subdivision levels, and it comes with all the porosity that you can see here. Let me just waiting for the whole thing to subdivide. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to translate that into my own mesh and then just morph it, as simple as that. So what I'm doing here, I just have my other character with a completely different topology. And just by doing some projections, I can just get into the same character with the same quality of the porosity in a very fast way. And now you will be saying, but it's the same scan data. It's fine. I can just morph it to whichever character that I created before. So for example, what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to import here, and I'm going to import my other character. So now I have the same character that I showed you in the presentation. And now check this out. It comes with all the porosity just for free. So again, having the right methodology can make every work just so much nicer, so much faster in general. Okay. So this is something very important for you guys to check. Grooming. I still have some time. So grooming. Grooming is all about hair creation. In this case, I'm going to be talking more in the VFX industry. So there's no haircuts. There is no haircuts involved. It's all millions of splines. But how do you handle all these splines and trying to make sure that that groom makes some sense? So you have to create guidelines. By creating the main guidelines, you can then interpolate all this tiny hair that is happening in between to follow those major guides. For this character specifically, I use Houdini to create the dreadlocks. The explanation why I did it is because interpolation is key when you create hair. Having a bad interpolation is going to make the hair start penetrating with itself, and then it's going to look unrealistic. So depending on the type of groom that you have, you're going to need to go for one software or another. So for this one specifically, just because of the dreadlocks, I had to choose Houdini. Houdini, it has one very good pro, and it's because it's very good for a VFX pipeline when it comes to movies, when it comes to advertisement, etc. And the reason why is because it doesn't really break. It doesn't really break because you have real guides happening there, and then you can delete the guides if you want. You can even add more. It doesn't break. The problem is that I don't know if you guys have tried learn Houdini. If you guys have tried to learn Houdini, I'm so sorry. It sucks. It's actually pretty difficult at the beginning. But once you get the handle of it, you can already start understanding all the node system and how everything works. So again, Houdini can be very good just to make sure that it's pipeline friendly. And then, for example, for this character, for the other character I'm going to show you later, I use Action in Maya. If you guys are familiar with Maya, Maya comes with a grooming package that is called Action. Action, what it has good is that extremely easy to learn. There are a bunch of tutorials and learning resources online, so it's pretty cool. The bad point of Action is the fact that it's extremely buggy. It's horrible. It crashes all the time, and when it comes to simulation, it's even worse. So technically speaking, for a VFX pipeline, is not good. It's just literally studios just deny it completely. Okay. I want to show you quickly how the Groom process works. I still have some time. So as I said before, the first thing that you need to do is create the guides. But for that, you need a sculpt. The sculpt is this tiny mesh where the hair is generated from. After you create the sculpt, you generate the guides. In this case, I'm generating the guides by using the spline methodology that is pretty much extracting edge loops from a topology. It doesn't really matter. And once you have these guides, you can already start interpolating the hair in between. As I said before, here is all about interpolation. So in some cases, to be able to help that interpolation, you need to start creating new guides and put them in position, because hair is very complex, and not necessarily the character knows how the hair is going to look like. So technically speaking, you need to probably create more guidelines. So, but it's a very easy process. In this case, what I'm showcasing is Action in Maya. And I really encourage you to try to learn it if you want to create like proper characters. Even with stylized characters, X can have hair card generation, so it can be very useful for you guys to learn. Okay, and that's it. Pretty much, I got the hair here. It took me pretty much in real time something around 2 hours, maybe hour and a half, and that's it. It's a very simple process when it comes to hair. And then the last thing that you have to do is start creating noises, clamping, you know, like cut variations. Hair is irregular by itself, so technically speaking, there is more breakdown inside the hair. Okay. And finally, the look depth. That's the final part of the presentation. Look depth is when it comes to the final render, right? So it's how we're going to present the character. As I said before, it's all about the material, how to read the surface, how to read the light, how to read the skin, how to read the hair, how to read all this kind of stuff. So it's very important to understand and mostly having the right resources. So for that, I wanted to show you quickly. This website is called Daniel Boschung. Daniel Boschung is a photographer, I believe from Germany. I have no idea. The cool thing about this website specifically is that you can zoom in crazy into the character, into the model in this case. So I'm going to show you quickly how it works. Just click on the images, and this is free, just to let you know. And then you can actually zoom in like crazy to a macro level, and you can even see the porosity. Why for a character artist that is specialized in digital humans is so relevant? Because again, you can see how the surface breaks, how the specularity breaks, and then you can judge better the skin when you are creating it in Maya or Houdini, whichever package. And as you can see here, the porosity has not the same size in the cheeks. It's not the same porosity in the nose. Even the hair is different in different areas. So in this way, you are able to explore better the face by just having the right reference and trying to translate that into your own character. So super useful, danielboschung.com. Just take a look to this guy. He has plenty of sources. It's mostly Caucasians. I believe it has no different ethnicities, but hopefully in the future, the guy is going to introduce more. And here there are just some 10 examples of skin development. This is just like a early stage renders, but here what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to replicate that specularity breakup that we were just kind of seeing in the website, trying to break the surface, trying to get that scattering happening in the skin. Scattering is how the light gets in and gets out of the surface, creating these red variations, etc. Here, things get more complex, but again, just having the right sources can help you quite a lot. And finally, just some few examples from some of our students. As you can tell, just having the right methodology, knowing anatomy, don't subdivide the mesh, you know, like trying to read the surface, the lighting, etc. It can help you quite a lot to create very valuable projects. And that's it. You guys can do it. And I'm very happy to answer any question if you guys have.
Марлон, спасибо большое.
Thank you so much, Marlon.
Welcome.
That was amazing. And I really wanted to pick it up. I never planned to, but it was so juicy. Yes, Marlon said it's easy peasy, and I think I can make it if I really want to do it, if I have the will. Well, we've got several questions from our chat, from YouTube, from Twitch, from the website, and from Contacted too, from VK. Any super questions? Marlon, what about with the rights for faces? Do you get any permission? What about IP?
When it comes to VFX and games, you have the rights from the actors themselves. So, for example, when I create Tyrion Lannister from Game of Thrones, they didn't give us any scan data, but they gave us the right to create the HBO characters. So, technically speaking, when it comes to a production level, that's the first thing that you have to sort out. You have to sort out the rights. When it comes to just to personal report, it doesn't really matter because you are not making money out of that. But just a funny fact for you guys, because I've been doing some research when it comes to online, let's say online law, when it comes to faces. Technically speaking, the only person that has the right on your face is actually your mom and your dad. So not even a company actually holds your face. So that's something that is very interesting. I didn't know before. So when you create a human likeness, just to know, you need to ask mom first.
Понятно. Спасибо.
Thank you so much. How much does it take to do one model during a production phase? What kind of deadlines you might have?
So it depends on the studio. For example, for the Game of Thrones characters, they only gave me 30 days. So in 30 days, I have to start from a sphere. As I showed you just before, I start with a sphere. I'm from there creating everything, hair, grooming, everything. When it comes to more like a more harder production level, especially with movies, you actually can have like a 2-3 months easily just to work on the face specifically. If I'm not wrong, for example, for the CG avatar in Blade Runner, where they made Rachel, the younger version, they scanned data, the real actress, who is an old lady at this stage. And if I'm not wrong, they spent like 7 months just working in look development and just trying to get the right face and everything. So it depends quite a lot on the production, but most of the time for smaller studios, like a month and a half. For bigger studios, you can have half year easily.
Спасибо. Еще вопрос.
Thank you. One more question. What about optimization of topology and the density of the mesh in digital avatars and digital twins? I've seen so many projects with mesh at the level of cinematic and in game dev, but in game dev, the mesh is more optimized.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of golden standard?
Yes.
Is great for everyone, or is it dependent on the project?
When it comes to VFX, technically you don't have a standard. It's up to the rigor. But when it comes to games, actually you have a limit. For a hero character, when it comes, for example, the main character of any video game, normally you hit something up between 100 and 150,000 triangles. That's normally where it comes. And just the head itself can be easily 50K triangles, just out of all of that. I'm talking about games when actually there is a limit. For a non-hero character, it can be something easily 50,000 in total. So more or less just having, these numbers, how the topology should look like. Obviously, I'm not talking about mobile games because then you put the poly count like crazy low. Forget about it.
Это шутка была, да?
That was a joke, right?
Yeah.
Спасибо, Марлон.
Thank you, Marlon.
Пожалуйста.
And then some specific questions. People are pretty technical, and I'm going to read them out for quite a while. So I'll put them in the chat and ask a question for myself. What is the current trend in terms of using digital twins in movies? So what is the average? How many digital twins you have per one movie, and what kind of studios order them?
I mean, it obviously depends on the movie itself, but lately, I do know that a lot of stuntmen have lost their job just because CG actors. Like, I don't know if you remember Wolverine, most of the action shots were CG avatars. In some cases, you actually have a real human for the body itself, but the face is a CG avatar. So again, depends on the type of movie, but I believe all these hero action movies, VFX productions, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Creating digital doubles is very standardized now.
Я тогда тоже еще один вопрос.
And can I ask a question for myself too? Is there any game where you think digital twins are the most realistic? Maybe not the ones where you work, not necessarily. Any movie or game where you think it's like the ultimate representation of digital twins?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because that's pretty much my job pretty much every day. It's funny, I really like the Blade Runner girl. I give it an example of Rachel, mostly because also kind of catch my attention back in the day. I don't know if it was released last year or 2 years ago. I don't recall, but I remember that it was specifically very well done, Rachel. And in any recent movie, I can't recall anyone because I don't watch Star Wars. I hate Star Wars. When it comes to like CG, Logan was very good as well. I think the CG version from Hugh Jackman was very well done. If I'm not wrong, was Digital Domain, the ones that created. But yeah, I think we achieved this stage where it's not so crazy to find very good digital doubles that you cannot distinguish that actually it was a digital double.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Great, Marlon. We got so many questions, a wave of questions, but we'll put them in the Telegram chat.
Okay.
It was really insightful. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you guys for having me. Thank you very much, guys. Пока.
До свидания. Интересно. Я прям заслушался, но не настолько, чтобы не напомнить, что у нас в конце будет
I listened to it and I was like, soundbite, but I actually haven't forgot about the quiz yet. You'll be able to complete 3 sets containing keyboard, mouse, and headset, and 2 more sets will be given for the most interesting questions that you are asking in the process of the live stream. I think that right now we can introduce the next speaker and invite him to Zoom into our stream.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear us and you can see us. Well, yes, we can see you.
Здорово. Всем привет. Меня зовут
Great.
Диана.
My name is Diana. I'm a recruiter at My Games. You know Oля. And we'll do a chat. We didn't want to have any slides. There's going to be a free-for-all session. There's so many questions in the chat. We are surprised. We'll try to share as much information as possible with you, although we are pretty limited in terms of time. But I hope you're not tired and will listen to our answers. Can you see me? Yes, yes. Great. So it's a duo.
Потому что не все умеют читать по губам.
Not everyone can read the lips. We need some sound coming from you. Well, let's start off with a question. We're actually ready to dive in, and I know the question you want to ask. Olga, that's a question I want to put to you. So let me read it out. Fire away. That's a question from the chat. So I'm not responsible for it. Corporate training for an artist. Is it more value for a company to train somebody within the company or to look on the market? Well, it depends on the studio. Sometimes they don't have the time to train a new artist, but studios, nevertheless, are always interested in growing good artists. If you are a homegrown specialist, you're going to be loyal than someone who comes from the outside. So let's do a quick Q&A, right? So that was a short answer. The next question is to you. So if you're a lead, do you need to go to some, do you need to provide feedback to some juniors? There are so many courses out there for junior managers, for those who just become heads of teams and they teach them the soft skills, how to give feedback, how to set the tasks. So it's not about artistic skills, not so much about artistic skills. It's more about the managerial skills, soft skills. So indeed, it makes sense to attend courses for budding artists. Even if you've never had any experience in this, or any courses, any training is awesome. To go or not to go, that's an obvious answer. Even if it's just for some budding artists, any training will be useful. Moving on. Has recruitment changed over the past years? What's been happening in terms of demand supply? Based on my day-to-day operations, I haven't seen any major change. So I would say the market is flat.
Нашу компанию, да, у нас подбор идет полным ходом.
We keep hiring.
Как нанимали, так и нанимаем большое количество специалистов. У нас открываются
We've
новые.
been hiring a lot of specialists, and so we keep doing it. We always have new projects. Now, overall,
В целом в рынке, наверное, уже там
in
более
terms of the broader market, there are the following trends.
кандидата, да, когда у нас на кандидата было большое количество.
Previously, it used to be the candidate market. Candidates could choose from a lot of offers.
Гипотеза, да, что в какой-то момент времени
But at a certain point in time, the market will transform into the employer market when employers will pick and choose. But that's you know, some of the ideas, some of the long-term trends that we're seeing, but they're not still not cannot be seen in the market. Well, you don't need to be afraid. Competition might increase, but don't be afraid. If you're a very qualified specialist, if you are really passionate about what you do, then your chances to be promoted, to be successful, to be hired will only increase. So don't worry, boost your professional skills and just think of where you want to grow next and why do you need it. Next question.
Вопрос, он немножко в продолжение моего
It's a kind of a follow-up on what I said. What areas are the most important? What kind of specialists will be in great demand in the next 6 months? It's a follow-up on what we discussed right now. Regardless of the area, great specialists, highly qualified staff are always in demand. Even if there's a lot of competition, but you are the expert, you have some exclusive knowledge and you're ready to apply them in your work and to promote them and to share with others, to train some teams. Definitely, regardless of competition, you'll still be in demand. But if you press me really hard to identify some areas that are in greater demand, I would name the following ones: animators, VFX artists, technical artists, really super technical specialties and UI artists that work on interfaces, we can safely say that within the past years, just a couple of years, demand has skyrocketed for such specialists. So if you're just thinking of where to go, which area to choose, why not? And once again,
Главное, чтобы у вас было,
most importantly, as I said, you need to be passionate,
даже если это будет супер популярно,
over enthusiastic, even if it's a super popular area,
по сравнению с
you'll
ситуацией, если,
still
допустим,
be in demand
ладно, не единственный, но мало специалистов,
versus a situation when there's a deficit of specialists, but you don't really like it and you don't like your job.
поэтому выбирайте сердечком.
So choose with your heart.
Да. Теперь давайте
Fine.
перейдем к другому вопросу.
Moving on.
Да, смотри, Оль, на самом деле во многих
Olga?
чатах, да, там везде пишут, это по мнению, да, человека, который задавал этот вопрос, пишут, что нужны джуны.
Some say that everyone needs juniors, that you need to start from some low
Но
level
вакансий
positions.
этих открытых нигде нет. Да, ну то есть
But there are no openings like this.
эти вакансии, да,
It seems that these
достаточно быстро закрываются.
openings seem to be
Вот где же берутся
filled really quickly. But where do you take them? Where do you take those juniors?
с вакансиями, которые на начальной стадии?
Ну, я могу сказать так, что за вот прошлый год
That's what I can say.
не считала точную статистику,
I
но
don't have the
примерно
stats at hand,
вакансий джунов
but
было в
we
разных
filled more than
именно
10
вакансий художников.
vacancies for junior artists.
Вакансий джунов есть.
So we do have some openings and studios are ready to hire junior artists. A lot depends on the state of the team and the studio. Sometimes studios don't have the resources to hire any new junior stuff. And ironically, I had to go to Behance or ArtStation to look for budding artists who've just posted their first portfolio, and I've contacted them and offered them a job at GameDev. I had a girl who was a chef, and I said, I want to hire you. And she kept asking me, do I really need her? She doesn't have any experience. But she was like a budding artist. And there were a lot of cases like this. So you need to look at your portfolio. And if you've got a great portfolio, that speaks volumes. You know, you don't need to add anything to your portfolio. There are so many questions on juniors. I think we can go back to them later on if we have the time. I have a question to you, Diana. Well, if you're a 2D artist, do you need to know at least the basics of 3D? Which software? Will the list of software change in the future? I think it's not for HR. Yes, I think it's, you'd better put it in the chat and our art directors will respond to it.
Что про отрисовку, да, это тоже к этому. Давай тогда про медла.
Okay, let's talk about the next topic. I think I'll have to talk about 2D and 3D, particularly on the artist, on environment. If you know 3D, that's the norm. That's kind of the standard. Setting up ops, and many online schools have dedicated 3D modeling. 2D, 3D.
но при этом базово
It's not
можете
really complicated, but again, you can do some portfolio.
Но такой пайплайн используется далеко не
But
во всех
not all studios use such a pipeline, so you have to review it in a case-by-case study. But summing it up, as Anton said,
дискуссии по поводу портфолио. Чем больше вы знаете, тем
the more you know, the better.
как-то так.
Ну да, чаще всего это просто ускоряет процесс.
Most importantly, it just makes
Зачастую,
it
да, бывает не обязательно, но
faster.
желательно, но
It's a
поэтому, да. Поэтому, ну, надо смотреть.
sort of must-have.
Диана, давай тогда
It's
следующий.
on the wish list.
Чем 2D художник, чем middle 2D художник
What
отличается
is the difference between the middle 2D artists from other artists? What's missing to become a senior, and what does that person have versus a junior artist?
Middle и senior, да?
Okay, I'll try to break it down.
Junior
So a junior is just a
Он
freshman.
только-только пришел в это направление.
They've just joined, making the first steps. They learn a lot. They always need some supervision from some senior colleagues. They may be asking a lot of questions. They may make mistakes.
Он, ну, в общем, это тот человек, да, который вот прям
That's someone who's making huge steps to develop their skills. While a middle, that's a kind of a medium level,
специалист ожидается
and that would require some autonomy, responsibility for your decisions.
обращаться за...
Definitely, they could also request advice to learn new stuff. That's natural. We are in a lifelong environment, but middle level staff are more independent. Their artistic skills are on a high level.
На более высоком уровне, чем junior.
So they're just more advanced in arts than junior. And a senior
Специалист, который
is someone who knows all their processes.
Да, при этом он делает что-то больше, чем то, что от него
And they
ожидают.
can do much more than is expected from them. They could be part of some
В каком-то кроссфункциональном
other
взаимодействии.
projects or some cross-functional engagement. And they also provide training to the younger staff. They lead with their examples. They're like a role model for them. Give you lectures, meetups, feedback, calls. Feedback is always important for artists.
Такое вот прям ключевое различие между этими
So
тремя
that's the key differences between the three levels.
Не могу с тобой не согласиться.
I can't agree with you more. Thank you.
Да, ну, на самом деле такое. Следующий...
Fine. The next one is a tricky question. Since we have it, I'll have to put it to you.
По поводу заработных плат
What
для
about
художников разных уровней.
pay grades? So what about the pay for 2D artists? What about in the market?
Наверное, мы конкретных цифр сегодня не
I
сможем
don't
назвать,
think we'll voice any specific figures,
но просто хотя бы можем сориентировать, что сейчас
but
происходит.
maybe we can give you a ballpark,
Потому что
or
заработная
at
плата
least to overview what's happening in the market. Your pay depends on your level,
зависит, ну, как бы с одной стороны, это ваш
your qualifications on the one hand,
можете просить денег, отдавая себе в этом отчет. И с другой стороны,
and
это, скажем так, ну, бюджет студии, да, сколько
on the studio's budget.
опять-таки, что сейчас происходит с заработными платами?
What we're seeing today
Происходит некоторый кавардак,
is a little bit of chaos. We don't know what to do under the current circumstances, but it seems that
заработных плат устаканится, да, потому что
that
сейчас
the situation will settle down in a while.
прочего, да, там ввиду, например, курса доллара, многие немного именно студии
Some studios don't know how to behave, don't know how to handle this, but we'll still have to live with it. And I think that things will settle down in a while. The same applies to the candidates. So far, we're just, people are puzzled and confused. Next one. So if you're a novice and you come to VK and say, hi, can you hire me? Are you really interested in taking people from the street, basically? Here's what I can say. It has to be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. If you do have great ideas, if you're into it,
Во-первых,
first,
вы приходите, да,
yes,
и,
reach out to us.
возможно, что-то сможем вместе
We
придумать.
might be able to figure out something. I cannot guarantee anything, but we'll be in touch, we'll figure out whether we're interested in you, to what extent. If it's a studio job, usually it's a opening for a project. Game dev is a hard work, it's business and has to generate money. When you come to the studio, you're going to draw not what you like, but what you're going to be told. So you have to choose your job with a heart. It has to conform to your favorite style. But if you have your own project, well, it's not what studios want. There are a lot of studios that are into R&D or game jam, looking for fresh ideas. Maybe that's where you need to go. So if you're in the studio, you're not going to do what you want, but there are situations where you might be able to inject new ideas, and some of your ideas could be translated in someone else's project. So, yes, I'd like to add a point. A lot depends on the studio itself. There are so many studios out there. There are internal studios, partner studios.
Скажу, что в одной из наших студий есть такая
One of our
практика.
studios has the following practice.
Есть возможность предлагать свои идеи, будучи уже сотрудником, да, этой
Once
студии.
Once you're on the payroll, you can put forward your ideas, and that idea is successful, it can generate revenue, then you can get a bonus or some fee, some other perks.
Поэтому, если
That's
у вас
one
есть
of the great opportunities. So if you have a great idea, don't put it in dustbin.
результата,
The idea needs to take shape, and don't despair, don't lose the hope.
Смотри, Оль, тут интересный вопрос. Наверное, он такой.
Next question is very exciting. How do you get rid of the syndrome when you feel that you are not really an expert?
Будет место в индустрии для.
So you're kind of like an imposter. That's there's going to be some demand for you in this industry. There have been a lot of successful stories when people undergo training and then work in a game dev. As for this imposter syndrome, well, that's a popular issue among artists. When you think that you're not a pro, you'll never become the perfect artist, and always have these doubts, scruples. And was once attended a meetup of artists, and one art director said, when you stop doubting yourself and when you say it's divine, that's the point when you die as an artist. So you always have to be searching, kind of soul searching, being discontent with yourself makes you hungry and makes you search for something better. Yes, you need to share your work at our station. You need to do something. But overall, it's both good and bad. You just need to keep it in mind. Your flaws could become your benefits. And the final question goes to you. I really love this question. I think it's a kind of a rhetorical question. How do you handle a wave of people who think that they can, or think they're great artists? How do you screen? How do you do the screening? Do you really like your job? Well, that's a kind of a rhetorical question because I can't give you the answer here and now. We do handle a huge amount of portfolios, and maybe I'm lucky, but I see a lot of awesome, beautiful, amazing, breathtaking portfolios which I share with other teams, and these people become successful artists. But it's natural that some portfolios are bad. Yes, there are cases when you have to say no because of the artistic
либо какого-то другом стиле, либо в другом направлении.
Because your art is poor, or maybe the style is different, or but we always try to make sure that the candidate could get the most extensive feedback as possible in terms of the skills that are missing, why they cannot be hired right now, so that they can work on it, so they can focus on it and improve and grow, and maybe in a while try another time. And that's possible. We do have success stories when people came to us for a second time or a third time, and even a fifth time. So they tried and tried and tried over and over, and finally they made it. So don't lose that hope. Be as single-minded as you've always been. You need to be driven by your motivation and the realization of why you need it and what you want to get from it. Why do you think it's going to be a rewarding job? Let me add a point in terms of the good portfolio. Now, first, rest assured that we'll always keep our eye on those great portfolios. We might have one opening today, we will have a second tomorrow, and the recruiter is your friend. We really want to get you hired. Trust us, we will do everything possible to get you hired. So you might, be friends with the candidate for years. You might get along with them. You might still stay in touch. And when there's the dream of a job, you'll call that person and say, hey, this is the one you needed. I didn't need to do interviews with a million of other candidates. Here is the ultimate person. We want this person. And I'd like to remind you that we've changed the link that we have in the presentation, and right now it leads to it's a link to an opening. So perhaps it's the job of your dream.
Да, поэтому, если вы
Right.
заинтересованы,
So if you are interested,
QR-коду, оставить свое портфолио.
scan the QR code and share your CV and your portfolio. That's it. From us, it was a great pleasure to be talking to you. I hope it's not the last one. I hope we'll see you again.
И сможем ответить на большее количество
And we'll be able to take more
внимания,
questions.
что,
We
сейчас
realize
очень большая заинтересованность в этом направлении.
everyone's interested in it.
Пишите, звоните.
We'll be happy to help you. Reach out to us.
Хорошего всем вечера.
Have a good afternoon.
И там вопросы, я вижу, что еще некоторые
And
вопросы
some
появились,
more
и
questions in the chat.
письменной форме
Then we'll provide some written response to it.
Всё.
Right?
Спасибо.
That's it.
Хорошего вечера.
And goodbye.
Спасибо большое. Спасибо.
Thank you.
Спасибо,
Thank you,
Ольга.
Diana. Thank you, Olga.
Произошла конференция, да, только что. Вот. А теперь настало время, да.
То самое время.
То самое время, чтобы
So here is this time, the high time, to award the winners
победителей за самый интересный вопрос. Двух.
for the most interesting question. Two winners, actually.
Антон, кто это?
So, Anton, who that would be?
Диалог мой с собой привел меня к таким
So my internal dialogue brought me to such an outcome.
Вопрос следующий. Бывают ли у вас
The first question.
ситуации, когда один
Does it ever happen with you when the lonely developer comes up with his project and offers to implement it, and whether you are interested in considering that option?
На этот вопрос отвечала Оля с Дианой недавно.
Olga and Diana answered this question recently.
Ну,
Olga said that she'll frustrate
автор вопроса,
the
что
author of the
всегда
question,
нужно
that not everything is as good,
проект, который ему
and
сказали,
he'll have to work in the project he'll be told to work.
шаг вправо, шаг влево, расстрел на месте.
Но придется это
Бывают
делать, получается,
ситуации разные.
But
У
the
меня
situations
был
might be
такой
different.
откат мыслей, поэтому меня этот вопрос зацепил.
I've had a lot of thoughts, the train of thoughts in my head. So my first reaction was, yes, there are a lot of questions. There are a lot of people who have lots of ideas and they're standing in a row for the implementation of their projects.
Смотрите, несколько моментов.
But there are a couple of points.
Одна ли эта идея у человека?
It's important whether it's the only one idea or the person is the generator of ideas.
Плотно генерировать эти идеи.
Will this person be able to generate these ideas very densely, like a lot of ideas?
Если идея единственная,
If it's yes, then we continue speaking, communication with this person. If it's only one idea, then we stop at once. So there are different teams of developers, the developers of hyper casual games, and they're actually creating one game per week. You wanted to say per an hour? No, yeah, they're striving for that, of course. But if this person who asked this question is ready to get into the swing of things, and there are such spheres of activities, when this person will become handy. He has an idea and it needs to be implemented very fast because the team who are generating a lot of ideas, they burn out, and sometimes they run out of ideas and they need some fresh blood into their team. And there is such a window of opportunity which sometimes opens with big companies. And at this moment, there is a call for some idea. And if some external person comes at a specific time, specific place, you know, exactly to this person, and the planets should like align in that position that the companies hire such person, yeah. Like, yeah, he comes up and he said, hey guys, do you want this idea? Do you want my ideas? And they're sitting there and pouting, and they're like expecting for such person to come finally. So the author of this question is Vlad. He's called Vlad. What do we do with him next? Yeah, Vlad will be contacted and he will be told how to get keyboard, a mouse, and a headset.
идет звук и куда можно говорить. Вот, конечно же, от Оклик.
with mic
Замечательно, замечательно.
from Oakley Company.
Звучит хорошо. Влад уходит придумывать идеи с этим набором.
So Vlad will go and generate some ideas with this set.
Второй вопрос, первый
This was the second question. And the first one was to
боролся со страхом выпуска нового
Igor Arhipov. How did you fight with the
пиар-директоров? Кто впервые
fear of
за это
creating
время
new ideas, new projects? Some advice for the people who are creating the project
Очень
from scratch. I liked the question and I like the answer. Doing something at the very beginning is very scary, is very fearful and very dangerous. But once you are on that path, be ready for the difficulties and awards.
Это метафорический выбор вопроса, то есть будет сложно, но вот тебе призы.
So kind of a metaphoric selection of the question, like it's going to be hard, but here is the prize for you, yeah? Here is the help, yeah.
И ответ Игоря тоже сегодня звучал из уст Игоря и Гулема и Марлона.
And Marlon and Gilliam and Igor were saying that you should be passionate, you shouldn't be afraid to take any risks, you should be going forward no matter what, you should fight against any obstacles. But
И подсветка новой клавиатуры, мышки и наушников будет освещать путь.
and the light, this highlight of the keyboard and the mouse and everything will be lighting the way, actually. The leopard with the oranges, you mean? Okay, we're congratulating the leopard with the oranges.
Будет странно, если ты правда леопард. Вот, но у нас
People will get in touch with you,
комплекта.
but we have 3 more sets.
Разыграем при помощи квиза.
And we'll actually,
Все-таки квиза.
you'll be able to compete for them in the quiz.
Думаю, что мы можем потихонечку даже переходить.
And I think we might even go. Yeah, we start our quiz actually.
Значит, на экране, значит, можем. Нужно открыть сайт. Он написан.
Please open the website www.menti.com.
На этом сайте код 1215.
Type in the code 12152755. 12152755.
Люди, которые, собственно, пришли на сайт, ввели код, и нужно будет отвечать на вопросы, которые
So you have to answer these questions that you'll see on your screen of the device.
Скорее всего, ответ на этот вопрос вы сегодня слышали. Не скорее всего, а точно.
And you might probably, no, for sure you heard the answer to this question. So
тот и сможет поучаствовать в
those who are the first ones, yeah, 3 first winners who act fastest and give the precise answer.
Волка, козла, пингвина.
I see a wolf there, a goat, a penguin, a bull, a little bit of crocodile.
Да. И, кстати, вы когда туда заходите, желательно писать никнейм, чтобы можно было его прочитать.
And when you go in there, it's better to write a username or game name.
Это я. Это мой никнейм.
Yeah, so that we could identify you.
Еще вижу сердечки, лягушку.
I see some frog, I see hearts.
Краб, пончик. Кто-нибудь еще присоединится, может быть?
I see crab.
Медведь, опять же.
There's a bear.
Прибежал только что. Ну, тигр пришел, неплохо. Ну, я думаю, что мы еще можем какое-то время пособирать, чтобы больше людей было.
Леопард пришел?
Yeah, I think we might wait a little bit.
Пришла шляпа. Я вижу шляпу.
There is a hat, a magician's hat.
Так, Дед Мороз, поезд.
Father Frost, a train,
В принципе, уже, мне кажется,
cat.
может ли вот все это количество персонажей, в принципе, основать свою игровую студию?
Can these number of images base their gaming studio? And the most important is what they can do.
Неплохо. Самолет, скрепка, опять
Plane, a paperclip, a cat again.
мы можем продолжать так еще долго.
Okay, we might go on here like that
Или все.
for some time.
Придумал их ники.
Ники?
называть.
В принципе, это все можно действительно объединить. Клубника. Ну, давайте до 10 считаю, если никто больше не появится.
Okay, counting till 10.
Заяц. Так, хорошо. Раз, два,
1, 2,
три,
3, 4,
4,
5,
Я не видел новых. 6,
6,
7.
7,
Нет, не было новых. 8.
8,
Кто-то ушел. Ну, больше шансов. 10. Все, я думаю, что мы
9 and
начинаем.
10. Let's
Больше
start.
никого вроде нет.
How in the big
Да,
games
вопрос.
team
Как DBD Games
the
называют
principle
мачту
of
своих
building new
пайплайнов?
pipelines is called?
Челночный пайплайн,
Shuttle
водопроводный
pipeline,
модель и
waterfall model, and
Scrum.
Scrum.
Это серьезные термины, в
These
которых
are
я,
real,
кстати,
actually,
хотелось
terms.
бы, но
Но
не
теперь
так часто звучат они из моих
уже
уст. Теперь
чаще.
придется, да. Ну, каждый раз, как ТБД, так сразу звучат, а потом, а потом перестают. Итак, время
The time is up,
Правильный ответ челночный
and the right
пайплайн.
answer
44
is Shuttle
ответили
pipeline.
правильно
44
наши
out of 54 answered
людей, но
correctly.
сейчас персонажи
Можно
нам
сделать вывод, что 54 человека участвуют.
Да, да, этот можем. И пока что больше всего
And
очков
for now,
поинты.
these are points, not rubles.
Сулдиван, Джонни и
Soldevan, Johnny, and Elsa are
Но
getting
это еще не все.
3
Будут
top,
еще вопросы.
ranking
Еще
3 first. There'll be 4 more questions for you.
Второй вопрос из 5.
Second question out of 5.
Третий вопрос из 5. Второй вопрос из
Okay.
5. Вопрос, какой из вопросов в данный момент все-таки будет звучать? Наверное, второй.
In his presentation, Igor Arkhipov spoke about ADD. What ADD is? Art design document, art design direction, and advanced digital design.
Идет.
Дизайн. Арт-дизайн, документ, арт-дизайн, direction, advanced digital design. И правильный ответ, естественно,
And the right answer is art design document. 37 out of 54 answered correctly. Let's take a look at the results. Okay, we missed that part. Now the third question. Knowledge in which sphere are the key ones for creation of digital humans, according to Marlon Nunes? Physiognomics, anatomy, cosmetology.
Или анатомия, или косметология. Я не могу отвечать на этот вопрос,
I can't answer
все знают, что
this
я
question because everyone knows that I know the right answer.
Но в остальном... Так. И, конечно же, это анатомия.
Of course, it's anatomy.
Никто не ответил косметологию.
No one answered cosmetology. Why?
Чем вам не нравится? Но, конечно же, анатомия.
Why don't you
Чтобы
like it?
делать цифровые двойники людей,
Yeah, of course, anatomy. In order to create the digital humans, it's important to know how
ну,
people,
психология, в принципе, тоже.
people's anatomy is
Это
working
другие
with them.
двойники уже, не цифровые.
Множественная личность.
Да, множественная личность. Четвертый вопрос из 5. Мы приближаемся к пятому, к юбилейному вопросу.
Fourth.
Какие персонажи в игре, разработанные командой The Bridge Studios, параллельно выполняют роль интерьеров?
What are the characters in the game developed by the Bridge Studios are fulfilling the role of interiors? Can the planet be an interior, or the dinosaur, or the giant robot?
Все может.
Ну, кстати, это
Anything can actually.
не очень сложный вопрос.
It's not a complicated question,
Презентация была вот
only because the presentation was about one thing,
роботы-гиганты.
about robots, giant.
Все хотели бы жить в роботе-гиганте.
Everyone would like to live in a gigantic robot.
Если ты робот-лилипут, то робот-гигант. Твой дом.
Сложная мысль, но я понял ее. Я понял.
If you're a small robot, then the gigantic robot is
И мы узнаем, кто же...
your
Так, а что у нас
house.
с распределением очков? А пока Вот Роман, между прочим, вырвался на третьем
Let's
месте.
take a look. That Roman is on the
Нет,
second
Роман
place.
на второе вырвался, а вот Лара на третье. А
Clara is on the third place, and Soldevan is on the first place.
целиком.
Probably he watched the meeting from the very beginning and was listening
Или
attentively.
вспоминал Лару, опять же, мы же не знаем. Пятый вопрос.
Question number 5.
Сколько игровых студий входит в состав My
How many
Games?
gaming studios are there in my games? And I know the answer to this question.
До 50.
Up to 50.
Я просто смотрел, вдруг там будет вариант 55, и я как бы отвечу неправильно. 14, 10 или 12?
14, 10, or 12.
Ну, тоже, я же правильно ответил. Правильный вариант 14.
The right answer is 14. So the 22 people answered 12. It's a very tricky question. That's for the first time when the majority didn't answer correctly. And the last, actually, the first and the
У
last.
нас распределились призовые места.
So who is on the
О,
first
как
place?
всё поменялось.
Okay, that's
Эльза
Elsa.
на первом месте.
Elsa is on the first place.
4777.
4,777
На
points.
втором Лара и на третьем Анастасия.
Lara is on the second place and Anastasia is on the
Очень
third place. Yeah, now I'm in the store. I'm going to call the robot points.
Это комплект, клавиатура.
The best is that the set of mouse, keyboard, and the headset goes to these 3 people. So please go to Telegram chat and send a screenshot that you are the winner
Чтобы мы могли проверить, правда это или
so that we could check.
Потому что кто угодно может написать, а вот поэтому нужен скриншот. Вот, поздравляем в любом случае всех тех, кто победил, а тех, кто...
Anyway, congratulations to those who won and those who did not. So good luck next time.
Вот, прежде чем
I'm sure we'll come up with something interesting. Before we finish,
наших замечательных пар,
I'd like to mention all our partners, all our wonderful partners.
сделаю, все. Я... Спасибо, так стало лучше видно. Это, конечно же, DTF. DTF.
This is DTF for sure. It's a portal.
Зайти, узнать все, что угодно про игры и, конечно же, подписаться
Go to portal where you can go and learn everything about the games. Next is OClick.
которую мы сегодня разыграли, клавиатуру, мышки, наушники и не только.
It's all about equipment and Scream School.
Получить себе дипломы и научиться делать игры. Вот так вот все
Where you
просто.
can get a degree and learn how to play the games, how to make the games.
Еще раз, я думаю, что нужно было сказать спасибо.
That's it. Thank you very much, partners.
Каковы итоги сегодняшнего мероприятия?
So, what's the summary of our today's event? I think we learned a little bit of new things. Personally, I learned a lot of stuff. The most important thing is now to try to keep it in mind. There are a lot of pipelines. Today we have considered 4 of them. They shed the light in this dark kingdom of pipelines ignorance. So we looked at the combined 2D, 3D projects and purely 3D projects and high poly. Digital humans and the project of pipeline in the future. I have a dream that in the future we learn a little bit of new pipelines. And it's more convenient to make it with My Game Studio. We can go to new studios and ask to share with a pipeline. Yeah, it's very convenient. If only it worked every time like that, you know. We'll try to speak about this issue in the future. It helps to promote the industry. We're exchanging our experience, information. It seems to be on the surface, but there are still details. And the devil is in the detail, right? And The God is in the detail, yeah, not only the yeah, details are everything, and we'll be introducing these details to you in the future. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Anton. Anton Volkov was here with you, was here with us, and was the host. And my name is Simeon, and I was also a host today. And you can write, actually, here's the QR code for the feedback, what you can be added, what can be taken out. Any type of feedback, please share it with us,
Еще лучше.
so that the next time it was even better. Each time it's going to be better and better only. And I guess we're going to reach the moment when there is no room for better. That will be it for today. Thank you very, very much for watching us today. Make games, play games, watch about games, listen about games, and study the games. Games, yeah, everything about games. Games. Yeah, you can shut it down, actually.